Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. The chairman of the board, David Reed, is here today. David Reed said he's not sleeping well. Reed, is it the depression from working this show every day that's keeping you up at night?
I had not considered that as a possibility. It may be a compound effect between that and the realization that Cam Ward's going to be the next Titans quarterback. Could be both.
Oh, I said to Reed, Reed, how you doing today? And he was like, I'm okay. I was like, did you, that's it? And
That's
so
all I got. Some
apparently,
days that's all I got, man.
apparently Cam Ward being the next Titans quarterback or doing this show or whatever is keeping Reed up at night. Reed, are you excited that the draft is tomorrow? Are you ready for it to be over, or are you sad?
I'm ready for tomorrow to be over. Give me to 35 and see what happens then.
Okay, I remember during the COVID draft in 2020, just how depressed I was that Saturday after the draft, thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do now? When's the next sporting event? And so now I get sad. I get sad when the draft comes and all the gossip and drama and everything else goes away. All the speculation, the mock drafts, the analysis, the who's telling the truth, who's lying, who's not. But as far as the Titans are concerned, Reed's right. We really have to kind of turn our attention to 35 because for weeks we've known who the Titans are going to pick, and yesterday they confirmed it. It's going to be Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. He is the consensus top quarterback in this class, and he is, again, from a consensus standpoint, far from the best player in this class. But there's one thing Mike Borgonzi said yesterday, and it's not the first time he said it. In fact, he said it at the Senior Bowl right after he took the job when asked what he learned from the Chiefs and their experience with Patrick Mahomes. But he reiterated the same line again yesterday that I think is the focal inflection point, the biggest question that I might have about whether or not Cam Ward will succeed as the Titans quarterback. And it was when TD asked a question of stability, but the way in Borgonzi answered the question that opened my eyes to what I think is the single most important thing going forward.
How critical will it be for you guys together to be able to have that if you were to select a quarterback first?
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. And, and having a plan for the quarterback as well, as we've discussed, amongst Brian and Chad and what is the plan for the quarterback and having stability there and creating an environment for that player to succeed. Is all part of it. Sometimes you have to help these players along, and that's what coaching's here for, and that's what front office is here for, to provide an environment for them to succeed.
If you draft the quarterback, you have to have a plan. That's what he said in Kansas City. Was we had a plan, and it was hard to stick to it. Watching Mahomes in practice every day and saying, no, you sit the bench behind Alex Smith. They lost a playoff game at home to you with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, and they had Mahomes on the bench. But that was the plan. So when it comes to the Titans and Cam Ward, can I ask what the plan is? Or is this going to be like the trade offers yesterday when Mike Borgonzi was like, I don't want to get into all of that? Because this is what it feels like to me. And I could be wrong in this. This is a speculation, but this is what it feels like as a Titan fan. It feels like the Titans are going to overdraft Cam Ward, number one. They're going to make him the starting quarterback right away. As in, when they snap the ball right after the rookie mini camp is over, it'll be Lloyd Cushenberry snapping to Cam Ward. It feels like they're going to make him the starter on day one. They're going to draft a wide receiver with the 35th pick. They're going to trade back to 48 and then take a receiver. And then they're going to look at Cam Ward and they're going to say, all right, Sonny, you're up. And that's not really a plan as far as I'm concerned. Yesterday, Brian Callahan said that he had been through it before when talking about drafting a young quarterback number one overall and developing the young quarterback. And of course, he referenced Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And who here wouldn't want Joe Burrow to be the next quarterback of the Titans? I would. But what was the plan in Cincinnati? Get his ACL torn by sticking him out there behind a heinous offensive line? Because again, if you were to sit down with me and I were to say, okay, what's the plan here? as far as we're concerned with Cam Ward. And they said, well, we're going to stick him out there and get his ACL torn the same way we did Joe Burrow. That probably wouldn't add up for a lot of you. Cam Ward has talent. I was just on the midday show talking about it. I've watched the tape. Cam Ward has talent. There are some things with Cam Ward that made me say, woo-wee. I've never doubted his talent. Cam Ward seems like a great kid, a confident player, and a tremendous leader. I listened to his interview today on NFL radio from the little charity event that they had out at the draft. And Cam Ward answers every question honestly and fairly, and he treats the interviewer, whoever it is, respectfully, but he doesn't go into too much. You can tell he's hiding a little bit in there, and not hiding in a bad way, but hiding in a, I'm not letting anybody in. I'm going to tell you what I think and leave it at that, but I've got a little extra juice there in the tank, which, again, I like. But is he ready to save a franchise? Because that's what he's coming in here to do. He's coming in here to save this lousy franchise. And I don't think he is ready for that. A major problem in the NFL. Impatient owners who ruin talented quarterbacks because they make them play or they put expectations on them that are unfair before they are ready, or they set them up to fail with bad coaching hires or low payrolls, or in the case of the Cleveland Browns, sometimes overspending and setting the expectations for a second-year Baker Mayfield too high. This isn't the NHL, for instance, where pretty much every single team that wins the cup did so because they got to pick Connor McDavid number 1 overall, Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, Alexander Barkov, Alexander Ovechkin. That they get to pick these guys at the top of the draft, and that's why they win. Like, that's why. This isn't that way in the NFL. Again, the midday show, I didn't know this stat until Vingan read it off while I was on the air, but 4 quarterbacks in the draft era have been selected number 1 overall and have made the Hall of Fame. Troy Aikman, who got to the Cowboys, and they were awful when Troy Aikman was with the Cowboys. And it took years, and it took the Herschel Walker trade, and it took Emmitt Smith, and it took Jimmy Johnson, and it took a great defense and a great offensive line and Jerry's money in order for Troy Aikman to blossom. And what happened as soon as the good coach left? We talk about these organizations ruining these young quarterbacks. What happened as soon as Jimmy Johnson left? They went right in the crapper. Terry Bradshaw had Chuck Noll as his coach, and Chuck Noll sat his tush on the bench. Terry actually asked for a trade. Chuck Noll laughed at him. Cam Ward's going to play right away, it feels like. In the case of Peyton Manning, he saved a franchise. He legitimately went to the Colts. Now, they already had Marvin Harrison, and they had Marshall Faulk at running back, who they later trade, and they draft Edgerrin James, but he saved that franchise. That's what you're asking Cam Ward to do. And John Elway, while he was drafted number 1 overall, the bad organization, the Baltimore Colts, they actually traded him away and continued to stink. So it wasn't like he saved them, and the reason that Elway didn't play on that team was because it was a lousy organization. So when it comes to the Titans and Cam Ward, we know they're going to draft him. So there's no reason in talking about that. I saw when I logged on and I saw the text line and I saw people saying, they should take Travis Hunter or they should trade back. They told you yesterday the decision has been made. Talking about Travis Hunter or talking about Abdul Carter or talking about a trade down with the Giants, that's irrelevant at this point. They're going to take Cam Ward. So now what's the plan? How are they going to set this young kid up for success? The best quarterbacks in the entire NFL, with the exception of Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, were on good teams when they got drafted. Kansas City sat their quarterback on the bench and made the playoffs. Buffalo made the playoffs the year before they drafted Josh Allen. Baltimore already had Joe Flacco, sat Lamar Jackson on the bench, and had a winning record the year before they drafted Lamar. An AFC coach told Tom Pelissero at NFL Network that Cam Ward was the most talented quarterback, but, quote, scares me a lot. He's got a long ways to go before he's refined as a passer, and I see a lot of misses, especially outside the numbers. Caleb Williams is a much better passer. He's much more polished, and he still had a very rough first year as a first-year quarterback. I see the athleticism, I see the off-schedule plays, but I don't see him doing much in the pocket that he's going to need to do. There is a long way to go with Cam Ward, and there is a lot of work. He needs to be developed, just like Allen, just like Jackson, just like Mahomes. But I also think, just like Mahomes, just like Lamar, just like Josh Allen, they can't just look at Cam Ward and say, all right, here you go, Johnny. Go save the franchise. So I go back to Mike Borgonzi yesterday saying you have to have a plan. Well, may I ask, what's the plan? Because if your plan is the plan that most of the teams adopt, especially the bad ones, let's just send him out there and see what happens. You're probably going to ruin Cam Ward. And 3 years from now, he'll be in the exact same spot. Because that is the same plan that ruined Sam Darnold in New York. The same plan that ruined Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. The same plan that made Bryce Young look like a bust. The same plan that Chicago had for Caleb. The same plan the Jets had for Zach Wilson and the Jags for Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, just put him out there. Coach be damned. Players around him, who cares? So is that the plan? Or is there a different plan? Like the one the Chiefs had for Mahomes. The one the Ravens had for Lamar Jackson. Or the one that you had for Steve McNair? That's the real question. 615-737-1025. That is our phone number if you want to weigh in. Again, and the other question I think I got to have, is there any belief that Borgonzi and Brinker and Callahan have really put together an A-plus plan? You tell me if you actually believe in that. 615-737-1025. And speaking of those three, there is something I heard yesterday, something that many people, not just me, called out, but seemed rather facetious. And it's not just one thing either. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, one day before the draft. That's right. We know they're taking Cam Ward, but then who do they take at 35? That's the big question. Where does Shador Sanders go? We'll be live at Twin Peaks tomorrow. I expect to see many of you there. If you do not have draft plans, if you're like, man, Thursday night, where am I watching the draft? Forget about your buddies or text your buddies. Tell them to come with you. But Twin Peaks in Madison, come on out tomorrow at 6 o'clock and see us. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I mean, you want to take the best player available. Everybody says that. Not everybody follows that. The times in my career where I've seen we've made mistakes, either earlier in my career to even some of my mentors, when you kind of reach on a player based off need. Like Mike just said, I mean, we got a lot of needs. So we're just going to trust the process. We're going to trust the board. We're going to let the board talk to us. The work has been done. We're prepared. Now, the draft is unpredictable at times, and I know we're picking at the top, so maybe a little bit more of an understanding of who might be there or who might not be there. But at the same time, we're prepared for whatever comes at us, and we just got to take the best player.
That was Chad Brinker yesterday. Hey, we got to take the best player available. We got to let the board speak to us. I've seen way too many teams that have gone out there and have drafted for need and have overdrafted players, and they're big mistakes, and we cannot let that happen here. Oh, by the way, and I have Dane Brugler's top 100 list, his big board in front of me, and I only have his because it's the easiest to print out where it's all on one page. Dane Brugler has Cam Ward 13th. So instead of, hey, we got to let the board speak to us, we got to take the 13th best player. That's saying one thing and doing another. In fact, Mel Kiper Jr. went belt to ass on the Titans' decision to take Cam Ward number 1. Here's what Mel Kiper Jr. said.
I think they're trying to hit a grand slam or a home run here. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to swing for the fences here. And that's what they want at quarterback. And like I said, the days of the single double are over. So this is what you're trying to do. You're not taking the best player in the draft, number 1 here. You're not taking the second, third, fourth best player. Okay. You're probably taking anywhere between the 5th and the 10th best player.
Okay, so the Titans are saying, hey, we're going to let the board speak to us. We're not going to draft for need. We're not going to reach. And here's Mel Kiper saying, I mean, at best, he's the 5th best player. At worst, he's the 10th best player. And right now, the Titans, and this is one of the many criticisms I have, but the Titans have said a lot of things that sound very, very good and sound very, very appealing. And then they go and do the exact opposite. And it's like, wait a minute. What happened to what you said? And then they kind of shrug it off. Don't have to answer for it. Choose not to. I mean, Chad Brinker held one of those Nico Harrison, no audio, no cameras press conferences. Which, by the way, when you and Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, are the only two that do something, that might be a reflection of you. But it's hard for me to take the Titans seriously when, again, they say one thing that in principle sounds good, but then they go and do the opposite. So when you tell me we're not going to draft for need and then you reach with the number 1 pick because you have to have a quarterback, it's hard for me to see that add up. Chad Brinker said he wanted 12 top 100 picks in the next 3 drafts. Right now they have 8, 2 this year and then 3 over the next 2. So I'm trying to figure out how you're going to get to 12 over a 3-year period if the pick that is Cam Ward is not going to be used on a trade down. Mike Borgonzi, same thing. When I hear Mike Borgonzi talking about running a disciplined process or having a plan for the quarterback, all of that sounds very good. But what is the discipline? What discipline have the Titans shown us? Right now, everybody's finger wagging for not having the discipline and overdrafting a quarterback. What's the plan for the quarterback other than to put him out there and let's see? Because that's what it feels like right now. It would make me feel so much better. And I know a lot of you would hate this. But again, if you listen to the fans, pretty soon you'll be sitting with them. As Rand Carthon is sitting with them now, it would make me feel so much better if they took Cam Ward and they said tomorrow, Brandon Allen's going to be the starting quarterback. Because even though Brandon Allen stinks, at least it shows me that, no, we have a plan and we're going to execute the plan. Last year, Brian Callahan got up there and talked about, I don't have a lot of rules. I want guys to come in here. I want them to be themselves. I want them to feel like they can do whatever they want. And that sounded great. Remember Big Bad Vrabel? He had all these rules. But Callahan, he'll let you do whatever you want. He's a player's coach. The players feel like they can be themselves. Well, it sounds great, but when the next thing you see is Jeffrey Simmons throwing punches and cussing out reporters and L'Jarius Sneed allegedly shooting up car dealerships, chances are we might need to be a little stricter around here. So right now, when it comes to the Titans, it just seems like a lot of talk. It just seems like they say things like, hey, we have got to draft, develop, and retain. Great. So how are we going to develop the quarterback? Oh, we're going to stick him out there with one wide receiver and Chig at tight end. And how's that supposed to develop him into a good quarterback? Well, they demonized free agency, talked about how bad free agency was, and then went and spent $50 million on a left tackle, which, again, I'm not against, but I was never demonizing left tackle, or I was never demonizing free agency. When they demonized free agency and they kept saying, like, oh, free agency, bad. I kept saying it's not bad. It's just bad when you go buy injured corners that allegedly shoot up car dealerships. So that's why when I hear these things in the press conference talking about not drafting for need, but then you telling everybody you're going to draft for need, or you saying that there's going to be a plan for the quarterback, and I'm still trying to figure out what that plan may be, or that you're not going to spend in free agency and then you do spend in free agency, or that you want 12 top 100 picks, but you're not going to do the one thing that's going to get you more top 100 picks. When I see you doing all of that, I'm like, yeah, this is just talk. And it just kind of feels like these guys are inexperienced and they're doing what a lot of inexperienced people do, which is trying to figure it out as you go, but pretending like you have all the answers. Now, I do feel a little bit better about Reggie McKenzie being in there because he's been a general manager and has been in the league a long time. But at the same time, the Titans are going and overdrafting a quarterback with their first major decision. That is concerning. Kind of like when everybody said that, oh, this combination of Rand Carthon and his relationships and Mike Vrabel and his coaching cannot be defeated. And the first thing they did was sign Andre Dillard. And the second thing they did was draft a guard with the 11th overall pick. It's like, it sounds good, but where's the practice here? It sounds good that this is going to be a disciplined process, but now we're reaching at the most important position with the first pick in the draft. My favorite thing, too, was when it came to generational talent talk and Abdul Carter running with it, saying he was the generational talent. Like, easy there, buddy. 615-737-1025. We are to your phones next. 615-737-1025 plus. And we got a lot of phones. But coming up next, there is one thing that the Titans did not do and are not going to do that a lot of people might criticize them for, fans may want them to do, that I will absolutely not criticize them for and do not have a problem with. We'll get to that coming up next. Again, be sure to join us at Twin Peaks. That's right. Tomorrow night, the draft show starts at 6. I'll be there at 2 o'clock. So come on out. Because, again, we'll be live from Twin Peaks in Madison tomorrow. And on and on Friday, we'll be live from Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar in East Nashville. The coverage begins at 6 o'clock for draft night in Nashville each day, presented by Hardee's, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Twin Peaks, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Shane Company, and Professional Home Improvements. And I saw that the distinguished gentleman put on the YouTube chat. He said, Jared, I'll come out if you'll do a fireball shot. After the first round's over, I will do a fireball shot. Distinguished gentlemen, if you come on out to the show tomorrow. And anybody else that wants to do a fireball shot, I'll do a fireball shot after the round's over. I'm not going to do a shot and then go on the radio. But after the round's over, I'll do one with you guys. 615-737-1025 is our phone number at Stillman & Company on 102.5 The Game.
I do think the Giants are going to wind up sticking there. I do think they're going to wind up taking Abdul Carter, the pass rusher from Penn State. There are some medical questions. He's got a shoulder issue, a foot issue, low lean body mass number that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks that some teams use as a predictor for injuries. There's also some, I think, mild character questions, just how he's come off to some teams. But when you have a great pass rusher, a lot of times you're dealing with those things. It's not enough to pass on a talent like this, an explosive, productive pass rusher who can play on the ball, off the ball. And ultimately, I think, they've come to the conclusion that they can use him and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau all together at once. They have great history in that organization of adding pass rushers on pass rushers. In 2007, they drafted Matthias Kiwanuka in the first round when they already had Michael Strahan, O.C. Umenyiora, and Justin Tuck on the roster. And 3 years after that, with Umenyiora, Tuck, and Kiwanuka on the roster, they drafted Jason Pierre-Paul. In the aftermath of both of those drafts, they won Super Bowls. So it makes sense for them to go in on the pass rusher from Penn State.
That was Albert Breer saying, hey, it looks like the Giants at number 3 are going to take Abdul Carter. Now, I have said, I don't think the Titans should take Cam Ward. And if it were me, and again, I talk about if it were me, you go back to March, Sam Darnold is the quarterback. You're trading out of the number 1 pick and then hopefully taking Travis Hunter if you can. If not, I would have actually liked to, in a perfect world, trade it to 3 and then trade it again to take Matthew Golden, the receiver out of Texas. But they decided to go in a different direction. They're going with Cam Ward. And I've criticized them for that decision because I think it's a reach. And I'm not sure that Cam Ward is going to be set up for success. And I'm quite frankly not sure that Cam Ward's all that good. But that would be what I would do or what I would have done. But what I would do now when people are like, well, who do you want them to take? Well, they're going to take Cam Ward. Well, but who do you want? Well, I want them to take Travis Hunter. And the one thing that I will not criticize the Titans for is not taking Abdul Carter. Because I still have a lot of people that are texting me that are like, Jared, we need to go get Abdul Carter. He's hurt. Well, he won't be hurt. He'll heal. Okay. So were L'Jarius Sneed's knees. They were fine too. So I'm not going to criticize the Titans. And I think TV and the draft media is doing a disservice by basically ignoring Abdul Carter's not 1 injury, but 2 injuries. Abdul Carter was not available for the combine, was not available for a pro day, did no private workouts, and I'm just supposed to assume that I'm going to take this guy at the top of the draft and he's going to be healthy. If I were GM, he'd be off my board in the first round. So I look at the Giants, and if I were them, I'd be desperate to trade the pick, which is probably why they're telling the media that, oh, we're receiving calls on the number 3 pick. Even if it meant by taking like a 3rd or a 4th to move back to number 4 so New England could take him and I could take somebody else. And if I were the Giants and Carter was on the board, I'd still take Genty or Warren or Mason Graham or one of those guys over Abdul Carter because of the injury that nobody's talking about. I hear this stuff that's like, maybe New England, if he gets to 4, they don't like him. They would have liked him fine. But the problem is he's hurt. And in the NFL draft, teams do not like taking players that high that are hurt. Now, when you go later into the round or you're in the 2nd round or something like that, then you can take a risk. But teams do not want to take injured players at the top of the draft. And yet everyone on TV is like, oh, it'll be fine. Really? Because that same injury turned Javon Curse from the freak into an above average pass rusher. And take that with the 3rd pick. So I'm not going to criticize him for that. I think the Titans liked Abdul Carter, and then either they didn't like his personality at the combine or they didn't like the medical. But for me, I don't like the medical. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Andrew says, Jared, I am skeptical about Cam Ward too. But after a season filled with turnovers, mayonnaise, and DeMario last season, Cam Ward feels like a far superior individual as far as the likelihood of being that guy compared to Will Levis. Well, yeah, but anybody where there's a chance that he could be that guy has a higher likelihood of reaching that with the Titans than Will Levis does. This time last year, the guy who is going to implement the grand plan to turn Cam Ward into an elite franchise quarterback, Brian Callahan, was quoted by the same guy who we just played a cut of, Albert Breer, saying that, I watched Will Levis's tape and I told Rand Carthon, do your due diligence in the draft, but I don't think these guys are better than Levis. You don't think those guys are better than Levis? You don't think Bo Nix is better than Levis? You don't think Michael Penix or JJ better than Levis? So last year, everybody was high on the Levis fumes. Now it's on the Cam Ward fumes. But yeah, like Levis got an opportunity. Levis, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of problems with Levis. And I think the first being that Levis has got to grow up a little bit. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I don't mean that in a, oh, Levis is too immature and he's too into partying and I'm not saying that. But when I interviewed him at the Super Bowl 2 years ago, I'm like, man, this guy, he's so wound tight. It's like, dude, if you're going to be the CEO, you've got to chill out. And I think that kind of was why he flicked the ball to the other team. That's why he panics, because he's too tight. I think his body needs some work. I think he's got to get smarter on the field and not take the stupid hits. And I think he needs more experience playing football. And I think he needs to be humbled. And nobody around here was going to humble him last year. All they did was kiss his ass. And I don't think that's the best way to get the best out of him. One texter said, is it fair to say shoring up both tackles was step one of the plan? And if so, credit to them. So I'm going to say no, simply because like this time last year, I kept complaining about right tackle and the fact that they didn't have a single tackle, but we knew they were going to draft probably Joe Alt. It's too bad they didn't, or that they couldn't, but we knew they were going to draft a tackle, but I knew that they were going to be short a tackle if they did not trade back up into the first round and go tackle. And everyone kept saying, oh no, Jared, it'll be fine. Bill Callahan will fix it. And I said, okay, well, good luck there. Well, after the season they've had, there was no way the Titans couldn't go get a tackle. I mean, the real red flag to me, because I think they're going to go receiver at 35. The real red flag to me is the tight end. They need a legitimate starting shorthanded tight end, not Chig. Chig is a backup tight end. He's not a bad player. There's a role for him on a good team in an offense, but he's not a starting tight end. And so you're going to put Cam out there. I mean, are they going to play Brandon Allen at quarterback? Like if they get out there and they say, hey, Cam's not ready, are they really going to do that? To me, that would be showing a plan. When you just say, oh, no, we're just going to get him out there and play him. That's what the Colts did with Anthony Richardson. LD from McMinnville says, the GM hasn't been there long enough for me to not have faith or think that he can't have a plan, but the president has been there and was part of the regime that totally fell on their face, so I have no faith in his plan, but I'm willing to give the general manager a little bit more time to prove me wrong. I have a hard time thinking that Mike Borgonzi is going to be kind of the middleman here in this equation. He's not the one with the final say, so he doesn't really have the authority of a general manager, and he didn't hire the coach. But that there's going to be something about him that's so special that transcends what we already know about the other two. That one is hard for me to see. I was surprised how many questions were directed yesterday at the press conference to Mike Borgonzi, as opposed to Chad Brinker, who again is the one making these decisions. All right, I'm going to kind of lightning around some of these texts because there are a lot to get to. Adam in Portland says, bringing up the Super Bowls was wild. That was Brinker unzipping his resume and slapping it on the table like we were supposed to salute. I literally said out loud, Tool, do better. We don't care. Yeah, I heard that too. And it reminded me of the Titans trying to sell me when they promoted Chad Brinker. And they're like, well, he was in the Green Bay Packers. Right. And that's what got him the assistant general manager job. What has he done that got him the president of football operations job? 9 wins over the last 2 years. Well, that's something to be a part of. First of all, everybody who gets in positions of power in sports has some sort of championship accomplishment on their belt. Every single one of them. You want to know why? Because that's where you hire from. Nobody's like, hey, let me go get Carolina's defensive coordinator to be my head coach. It's always off the winning teams. So that, like, hey, we got 9 Super Bowls amongst us. Oh, hush. So does everybody. 615-737-1025. Chris Sanders. He's been a big proponent of the Titans going in the direction of Cam Ward. He joins us next here on the program. He'll also be on our draft coverage. Join Robbie Stanley and 1025 The Game from 10 to 2 at Coleman Tractor in White House this Saturday for Kubota Orange Days. There'll be exclusive deals on compact tractors, 0 turns, and more with special financing available. Sale runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. with demo deals, giveaways, and lunch from 11 to 1. That's the Coleman Tractor of White House, located at 3631 Highway 31 West, with Robbie Stanley this Saturday. This week's Nashville's best deal is the Fog Street Lawn Club, Nashville's premier soccer pub and rooftop. Fog Street Lawn Club offers scrumptious bites, British lawn bowling, and premier soccer pub vibes. Get half off a $30 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals and dive into the ultimate rooftop experience. Tomorrow we'll be live out at Twin Peaks starting at 6 o'clock for the draft night in Nashville, the draft show, an annual tradition. Chris Sanders, former Titans receiver, will be out there with us. Chris, we know who they're picking with the number 1 overall pick, so we're probably not going to have a meltdown, I would assume, on draft night. But I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
You are somebody who, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, ardently believes the Titans should draft Cam Ward with the number 1 pick, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you hear the criticism or the concerns from the outside world, these former general managers or other things?
Right.
Do you hear that, or do you just completely dismiss it? How do you channel the people that say, it's probably an overdraft with the number 1 pick?
I don't fear it, but I'll maybe listen to it a little bit, but I'll listen to the person that's been there, done that actually really, dissects quarterbacks. I'm not going to take, something from somebody that really, that doesn't really know about quarterbacks. I'm going to listen to a person that does know about it. It's funny because we're talking about Cam Ward. I was talking to TD early in the day, and I just flat out asked him a question. I said, man, is Cam Ward that guy? This is exactly what he said. He said, absolutely, he's that dude. So when you have a guy like TD that studies players, that studies quarterbacks, that studies all these guys, I'm taking ear to what TD says. I know a lot of people, around the world are critiquing everything he does, the way he interviews, the things that he does, but I'm going to listen to a person who actually studies quarterbacks. So when TD says that this guy's the real deal, that he processes things well, that he's a great leader, I'm going to take heed to what he says. Why? Because he actually studies the player as opposed to just what he needs to do better.
Okay, so when Bill Polian, who's a general manager that you competed against when he was in Indianapolis and you were in Houston and Tennessee, when Bill Polian, who's got a gold jacket, has been in 6 Super Bowls, drafted Peyton Manning, drafted Kerry Collins, drafted Jim Kelly, when he says this guy's not Peyton Manning as a prospect, he's not even Jared Goff as a prospect, how does that make you feel?
But a lot of people are not like Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was a special player. I mean, that's why he's a Hall of Famer. That's why he won a couple of Super Bowls.
But what about Jared Goff?
He was a great player. I mean, but we just don't know. I mean, I'll listen to what he says. I respect what he says, but you still don't know. This guy can come in and be a Hall of Fame player. So we just don't know when he comes in and get coached and gets developed. Then we'll kind of see where he's going. But I understand what you're saying about, Polian. I understand that he's done some great things, but he may be, Cam Ward might not be a good fit for his scheme or his organization, but Cam Ward might be a good scheme for somebody else. So yes, I respect what he says, but I'm not going to bet my last dollar that he's basically correct.
One of my big fears, because I see this far too often in the league, Chris, is a team takes a quarterback number 1, and they're picking number 1 for a reason because they stink, and they just send him out there. Without Sean Payton as his coach, and without Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce at receiver, and without a great running game, I am worried the Titans are going to just stick Cam Ward out there right away and say, all right, here you go, and that he's not going to be able to develop as a passer. What do you think the plan should be to maximize the development of Cam Ward?
I mean, the one thing they have to do, because I coach wide receivers at Montgomery Academy. The one thing I have to do as a coach, I have to study the player and find out what he does well. What does he do well? What does he need to work on and help build on correcting his weaknesses? And I think that for Cam Ward, they have to develop him. They have to let him go through the process. But here's the key word. They have to be patient with him. You have to be patient with this guy. This guy may come in and throw 5 interceptions the first practice. You have to trust the process, and you have to keep developing. Here's what you have to do. I know this may seem, cliches or just talking about football talk, but after every practice, he needs to turn on the video and find out what he needs to do better. If it's recognizing defense, if it's, stepping up in the pocket. Every day he comes off that field, turning that field so he can develop into the player. Yeah, so I think it's going to take time. He's got to trust the process, but he's got to be coachable. And if he can do those couple of things, I think he can be a good quarterback in this league.
Chris, when we turn our attention to 35, there's going to be some players that are available there. There are
Yes.
also going to probably be opportunities to trade and maybe pick up 2 picks on day 2. So maybe a late second and a third or something like that. When it comes to taking a player at 35 versus trading back, without knowing who's going to be there, what's your philosophy for where this team sits right now?
I mean, it all depends on who's there, and that's a great analysis of what you're talking about. Is if the wide receiver from The Ohio State University, Emeka Egbuka, or Luther Burden from Missouri, or somebody like Jaden Higgins is kind of sitting there, and you know that your receiver room is really thin. You have Calvin, really, you have some other guys. Then I'm going to run to the podium and really take that guy. But then if you look at the board and somebody has taken one of those guys or taken your guy that you had at that pick, now you trade down and get more pick because you tried to get the guy that wasn't there. So, it all depends on who's there. And we just don't know. But if those 3 guys are there that I just named at the receiver position, I'm not taking no chance. I'm not trading down. I'm going to get not just a player, but an impact player. And the guys that I named are guys that can come in and play right away because they're that special players.
Okay, so let's say that Luther Burden III is there.
Sure, yeah.
You think that, Luther Burden, and then what am I doing at edge rusher? What am I doing at middle linebacker? What am I doing at tight end? Is Luther Burden and Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard enough for Cam Ward? I mean, where do you see that?
I think it could. I mean, we might have to upgrade maybe the tight end position, but if you look at Calvin Ridley, it came into his own later on the season. Then you add one of those guys like Luther Burden or Emeka Egbuka, and I'm not saying this guy will be here. Even Matthew Golden, everybody talks about he's going in the top 15, but just maybe he slides down. Then now you got some impact players that you can surround Cam Ward around, because if we go into the season, now I'm not being disrespectful, we go into the season, with Burks and Jefferson and Oliver Bryce and Jackson and Casey Lindsey, that's not going to scare an opposing defense. But if you go in there with Calvin Ridley, Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, or a guy like Jaden Higgins that can complement Ridley, then now you put some pieces around that can really definitely help Cam Ward.
Okay, when it comes to the Titans, do you think Cam Ward should play right away, or do you think he should sit the bench and develop?
That's a hard question, but if you look at the quarterback room right now, I mean, you got Brandon Allen, you got Will Levis, and you got Tim Boyle. That's not going to scare you. So if I'm, Brian Callahan, or if I'm the office, whoever it is, I'm going to have to put him in position from day one, because if you don't put him in there for day one, then are you going to let this kid fall from the wayside? I know you're talking about developing and all that stuff. That's great. But to come in here and play right away and get your bumps and bruises early, then you're going to set yourself up for success. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Just like Stephen there, when we got drafted in 1995, he had his bumps and bruises. He was learning how to read coverages. He was understanding the game. But once he got it and developed, then now he came into his own by winning the MVP years later. It's the same thing with Cam Ward.
Yeah, but McNair sat for 2 years.
I know, but I'm just saying, but even if he comes in and struggles a little bit, just let him get his bumps and bruises. Let him have confidence and have, that comfortability, I'm the guy from day one to the last day. That's why. Do you remember
how long ago it was that the Falcons were in the Super Bowl?
That was a long 2014?
17.
Close.
Was the last time the Falcons were in the Super Bowl. That Matt Ryan was the league MVP. Since then,
sure,
the NFL MVPs have been Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, and Josh Allen.
Jeez.
Those are the only guys that have won the MVP since then. Do you know what they all have in common?
What's that?
None of them started their first game as a rookie.
Yeah. I mean, but see, here's the thing. If you look at the NFL, is everybody wants to have quick success. I mean, we talk about the C.J. Strouds that come in and play well. You got
not Mahomes' team.
I understand it, but those are some of the exceptions. I think with the Tennessee Titans, we have a organization that struggle with having quarterbacks like Mariota and Locke and all those guys that disappointed the franchise. You got to figure out something to give this organization a spark. And I'm not saying that Cam Ward is going to come in and just shock the world. He might do it, but at least, you hate this word, at least you're giving your organization, at least you're giving some fans, and at least you're giving, some people some hope of actually, can this guy come in and win some games? So I think it's going to be interesting. I think he needs to come in and play right away. I don't think you sit him, let him develop on the way to where he needs to get. So it's going to be interesting to what's going to happen.
It'll help sell tickets, that's for sure. Chris, I will see you tomorrow at Twin Peaks at 6:00.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it, brother. Love you, man.
Yep, Chris Sanders joining us on the program as always. If you can't tell by now, I'm in favor of Cam Ward sitting. And I understand you want the cookies now. I know. But do you really want to burn your mouth? That's just how I feel when it comes to the quarterbacks. All right, it's time for the 4th annual 615 charity golf tournament, the 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with our partners, Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce that we'll be back at the Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th, to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, donation to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Coming up next, Peter Schrager has a mock draft based on what he's hearing as an insider. What does it mean for the Titans at 35? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are 1 day away from the Tennessee Titans announcing to the world that Cam Ward will be their first overall pick. In fact, I saw today that it will be Cameron Ward who will be announced as the first overall pick in the draft. Roger Goodell will call him Cameron tomorrow, and then he'll go by Cam after that. You know, Mama call him Clay. Roger Goodell's going to call him Clay. She named him Cameron, so it'll be Cameron tomorrow. But then as soon as that happens, our attention will turn to 35 and what will happen with the Titans. So Peter Schrager at ESPN, he's a new insider there. He's been at NFL Network forever and been with Fox. So Peter Schrager puts out his mock draft. Apparently he does one every year, and he talks to people in the league, and this is how he comes up with his mock draft. Again, make of it what you will. I remember Peter Schrager 2 years ago talking about, the Colts are going to take Levis, because, again, a reporter's job is to report what they're being told. So I'm not going to sit there and say that it's crazy or whatever, but make of it what you will. And there were some surprising little nuggets in there. You know, again, I was not surprised to see Ward, Hunter, Carter, Campbell. Ashton Genty, the running back, goes off the board to the Jags at 5. I was surprised to see Tyler Booker, a guard, go to the Dallas Cowboys with the 12th overall pick. I am surprised to see Will Johnson, who's got a knee issue and a hamstring issue, falling to 28 with the Lions. And Maxwell Hairston goes off the board at 32 to the Eagles. And that means that if the Titans were to wake up on Friday morning, they would be sitting there saying, okay, here's who's available. And that's what's going to happen. We're all going to watch the first round, and we're all going to go to bed, and we're all going to have a list. Okay, if they pick at 35, this is who I want. And I hope Cleveland and I hope the Giants don't take them. If they trade back, here's who could be available. And so according to Peter Schrager's mock draft, again, which is based off of what he's hearing, here's who will be available on Friday night. And remember, you're 2 picks away. Number 1, Donovan Ezaraku, the edge rusher out of Boston College. Ezaraku led the country in sacks last year, and I believe was a first-team All-American. Now, he's not great against the run, according to the draft beat writers, but he is a good pass rusher. Number 2, Luther Burden III, the wide receiver out of Missouri. Now, he played the slot at Missouri, and his production dropped significantly to 600 yards last year, down from 1,000 the year before. Burden was a 4.41 guy, which means he is fast at the combine in Indianapolis. Number 3, Derek Harmon, the defensive lineman out of Oregon. Number 4, Nick Manawari, the safety out of South Carolina. And 5, Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. Now, I'm using Dane Brugler's top 100, as far as, okay, who are kind of the top guys that are there to a certain extent. And the only reason I'm doing that is because it was the one that's easiest to print on one page, where I can print the top 100 guys all on one page. It was the easiest to do it this way. Some other guys that are available, Josh Connerly, the tackle out of Oregon, is available. If the Titans were interested there. Carson Swessinger, the linebacker out of UCLA. Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. Those guys are there. So, when it comes to the Titans, they'll be picking at 35, and there is a chance, according to this mock draft, that Ezaraku would fill your edge need. Luther Burden would fill a receiver need. Mason Taylor would fill a tight end need, and you can definitely take one of those guys if this is how it plays out tomorrow night. In fact, according to Peter Schrager's mock draft, Tyler Shuck and Jalen Milroe do not go in the first round. And I think it is safe to assume that if Tyler Shuck is available at 33, Cleveland's probably taking him. Cleveland may trade back up into the first round, according to the rumors, to go after Shador Sanders. But when I hear Cleveland might trade back up into the first to take Shador Sanders, that really means Cleveland likes somebody else. So maybe it's Kirk Cousins, maybe it's Tyler Shuck, maybe it's Milroe. I don't know. So I assume that one of the 2 quarterbacks, Shuck or Milroe, and there would be no interest here, obviously, in either quarterback. I assume one of those two goes at either pick 33 or pick 34, which means the Titans are on the clock. And that means that one of Donovan Ezeraku or Luther Burden III is available. So here's the question for you all when it comes to pick number 35. Let's, again, using this mock draft, which there's no way that this mock draft's going to be right, but just as a point of reference, what is more important to you? The fringe first-round player, the player who's got some first-round traits, and some people consider him a first-rounder, and some people would be shocked if they're there at 35, or more throws at the dartboard, but you're probably going to get a lesser level player at those positions. For instance, let's say you're on the clock. Let's say Tyler Shuck goes at 33 to the Cleveland Browns, according to the Peter Schrager mock draft. And the Rams, according to his mock draft, are the team that trades with the Giants, so the Giants can take Jackson Dart. So the Rams are there. The Rams need a tight end. Let's say they take Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. So now you're on the clock, and both Ezeraku and Burden are there. Do you take that player and then say, nah, we'll figure it out? Let's use Burden as the example. We're going to take Luther Burden, and then we'll figure it out at edge rusher. Right now, it's Arden Key and nobody. We're going to take Ezeraku, and then we'll figure it out at receiver. Right now, it's Calvin Ridley, and then nobody. Or do you move back and say, all right, if I move back into the 40s, into the 50s, I can still get an edge rusher. It won't be Ezeraku, but it could be Jack Sawyer at Ohio State. It could be Olafemi Oladejo out of UCLA. It could be Landon Jackson out of Arkansas or Jordan Birch out of Oregon. And I still get another player. Or instead of Burden at receiver, it's Jalen Knoll out of Iowa State, Jalen Royals out of Utah State, Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, one of those guys. But again, I still get another player. Which one do you prefer? And as, I asked Chris Sanders kind of as directly as possible about this. I say, what do you value more? And Chris was talking, well, he's like, I think I'd run to the table, but, we got so many holes. We need so many players. You can't have it both ways. Again, this was the choice. When you decided to draft Cam Ward, this is the choice you made, which was if you're going to get any more throws at the dartboard, it's going to be by using the 35th pick. Personally, if the Schrager mock draft plays out, I'm drafting Ezeraku and then moving on. I don't love it. I mean, Ezeraku's a solid prospect, and he's at a position of need, edge rusher, and it is not a reach to take him at 35. But I don't love it because I still don't have a tight end. I still don't have a receiver outside of Ridley. I still need an inside backer. I can always use help in the secondary, especially with the uncertainty surrounding L'Jarius Sneed. But in that case, using the Peter Schrager mock draft, again, he says he builds this out by talking to people. I'm going to use the pick on Ezeraku and then figure the rest out later. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones, and we'll do that coming up next here on the program, 615-737-1025. There is also a little draft gossip that I want to get to because I don't buy it at all whatsoever. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. right, let's get to Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You never want to be on the clock and have a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency, because most of the time you do not know what it will cost if it will get fixed correctly, or if someone is just trying to sell you something that you do not need. When you call Hiller, their experts are going to solve your problems quickly. They should be the number one choice on your draft board as far as HVAC companies around. Why? Because they've got great expertise. Same with electricity, same with any sort of plumbing issue you may have. And that's why I use Hiller at my home and love doing it. The price you're told is the price you'll actually pay with Hiller, with no hidden fees or surprises on your bill. So book online today the exact same way I do by visiting happyhiller.com.
There have been phone calls made to both the Browns at 2 and the Giants at 3 with the intention to move up, from several different sources telling me there are teams who are looking to get up in this draft to either the 2 or the 3 spot. The assumption being to move up to the 2 or the 3 spot, it would be for Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, or the running back, Ashton Genty, who everyone expects to go somewhere in that 5 to 7 to 8 range. There have been teams making calls, and those teams are not immediately slamming down the phone. The Browns at 2, the Giants at 3. Everyone assumes it's going to be chalk, that this is going to go Cam Ward, it's going to go Travis Hunter, it's going to go Abdul Carter. Not so fast. I think the 2 spot gets very interesting if the Browns are listening to a Godfather deal for them to trade back and someone to trade up into the top 3.
That was Peter Schrager on ESPN. He said that yesterday morning, and then Twitter was ablaze. Breaking news. The Browns and Giants are taking calls on pick number 2 and pick number 3. And I heard that and I thought, bull crap. No. Again, think you're a reporter. If you're going to report that the Browns and the Giants are receiving calls, teams are calling the Browns, multiple teams are calling the Giants right now to try to trade up to number 3. You got to put your draft hat on here. How could Peter Schrager know that? One of two ways. Either the teams that are calling, those teams are telling him that, or the Giants and Browns are telling him that. Well, which one do you think is more likely? The Giants and the Browns. So when I hear that they're receiving calls, I interpreted that as they want calls. Pick up the phone. They want to get out of 2. They want to get out of 3, and nobody's calling. Again, I feel like going to ESPN and saying, we're getting tons of calls on this guy is the new way that, you remember how the old school ticket scalpers used to operate? They'd walk around outside of a stadium with a sign that said, I need tickets, but that really means I have tickets. So if you see a scalper, and I guess these people don't exist anymore because all the tickets are digital, but in the old days, kids, if you're on your way home from school, if there would be a scalper outside with a giant sign, a giant cardboard sign outside the stadium that said, I need tickets, that guy right there doesn't need tickets. He's got them. He's selling them to you. When I say I'm getting calls, it means I want calls and I want out of the pick. And I think in the case of the Browns, they're just interested in getting some extra draft capital, seeing what's out there. I think they're content with taking Travis Hunter. When it comes to the Giants, I think the Giants are looking at themselves saying, oh, I wish we didn't have to make this pick. Oh, I wish we didn't. I wish we could pick so-and-so instead. I wish we didn't have to make this pick. I wish we could, instead of having to take Abdul Carter, because again, it looks like they're going to have to take, instead of having to take Abdul Carter, I wish I could move to 6, add draft capital, and then maybe take Shador Sanders. I don't know. But this idea of I'm getting calls, it really means I want people to call. So I'm not buying that, and I don't think you should either. Your phones, 615-737-1025. One texter says, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, says it's kind of funny when you think about Trevor Lawrence, and not only the talent gap, but the fact that he has failed so far with Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram. And the Titans think that Cam Ward will flourish with Calvin Ridley, Chigakonkwo, and a second-round rookie. Yes, but he also had Urban Meyer as his coach for the first year. And who knows, Doug Peterson, for some reason, he seems like he kind of didn't work out there. But Trevor Lawrence has been in the division round of the playoffs. And Cam Ward has, up until this point, not been to the divisional round of the playoffs. One texter says, forgive me if I disregard Bill Polian's words when it comes to today's quarterbacks, because he's the guy that said Lamar Jackson was not an NFL quarterback and should switch positions. Bill Polian is the old man living in the past. Okay, so I want you guys to think about this for a second. When it comes to Lamar Jackson and Bill Polian, because that's what everybody says. He said Lamar Jackson wasn't a quarterback. You do realize 32 teams passed on Lamar Jackson. Not 31, 32. More than Aaron Rodgers. Because the Ravens drafted Hayden Hurst, a tight end, in the first round of that draft. So Kyle Shanahan was a head coach and running the 49ers at that point. He wasn't interested in Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Andy Reid, now they had drafted Mahomes the year before, but they weren't interested in Lamar Jackson at quarterback. It's easy right now to sit back there and say, well, I mean, he missed on this one guy. But as he said himself, the Gold Jacket Hall of Famers, which he is one of, bat about 55%. About 550 is what they hit. Do you realize how hard it is to become a Hall of Fame general manager? I don't think a lot of you guys understand how the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame works. But every year, one person goes in who's not a player. So we'll have 6 players go into the Hall of Fame. And that's how Edgerrin freaking James, who, again, was a good player, but was a Hall of Famer. That's how Edgerrin James gets into the Hall of Fame, because we put 6 or 7 guys in there, or 4 guys in at least per year. And then we put in one contributor. So one coach, one general manager, one broadcaster, one owner. That's why Robert Kraft, who has 6 Super Bowls, can't get into the Hall of Fame. Because every year there's somebody like Don Coryell, who was absolutely integral to the game of football, who is still waiting for their chance to be enshrined in Canton. The year that Belichick is eligible to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I feel bad for everybody else because Belichick's going. The year Andy Reid is eligible for the Hall of Fame, I feel bad for everybody else because Andy Reid's going. Bud Adams co-founded the AFL and is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which I think is a shame. And I think this rule is stupid that you can only have one contributor per year. Bill Polian is in the Hall of Fame. I don't think you realize how hard that is to be in the NFL's Hall of Fame. Not everybody's right all the time, but what social media has done for whatever reason to our brains, and this is a problem the league has, but what social media has done to our brains is it has made us believe that every single person should be right 100% of the time. And again, the best general managers bat 550 in the draft. The best, the gold jacket guys. So when you tell me something like, that game's passed up Bill Polian, I think you're an idiot. Do you realize how much football knowledge this guy has? This guy's drafted 3 franchise quarterbacks. 3 guys that have started Super Bowls at quarterback. And you think you know more than he does? But that's what our society's become. Our society has become, nobody anymore knows how to change a tire. Nobody knows how to fix their toilet. Nobody knows how to change their oil. But everybody thinks that they should be right all the time at general manager. I mean, it's a joke that some of you people think like, oh yeah, I'd rather trust my guys with 0 wins and 0. Like, again, no disrespect to Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, and Brian Callahan. But those guys sitting up there yesterday, the guys that are going to plot the new course of Titan football, they're going to draft this quarterback number 1. They're going to implement a plan because Mike Borgonzi said you have to have a plan. Those guys have a combined 3 wins in their current position up there on the podium. Callahan won 3 games last year. This is Brinker's first go-round in charge, supposedly. This is Borgonzi's first go-round, supposedly. Bill Polian won 229 games. Bill Polian has won more conference championships, 6, than those guys have won individual football games, 3. So pardon me if I take the advice of somebody who, again, has done it at the highest possible level with multiple franchises and multiple quarterbacks and say, you know what? This guy might know a little bit more than I do. This guy might know a little bit more than my guys. But again, this is a problem the league has. Everybody wants to hire a general manager who's never been general manager before. And I'm trying to figure out why teams aren't looking at guys that have done it and done it well, like Thomas Dimitrov in Atlanta, and saying, hey, the guy was the general manager in Atlanta for 17 years or whatever it was. They went to 2 conference championship games. They won the NFC. Matt Ryan, his quarterback, was league MVP. Maybe he would be pretty good as a general manager. He's a young enough guy. He's got experience. Nope, not interested. It's all these guys you've never heard of that get these jobs, and I don't understand why. Again, if I had a carpenter coming to your home to build you something, wouldn't you want somebody that has experience? But I guess not. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I do want to throw like one blanket kind of factoid out there, or one kind of edict from this program. Until anything more happens with George Kittle, as far as like, oh, like if somebody reports that Kittle wants out and Kittle actually wants out, if that's the case, then we can talk about it. But until then, I think Kittle's going to be a 49er. Coming up next, there is a discussion in Titanland that the fact that it has gotten to this point, I find to be absurdly disrespectful to somebody I have a lot of respect for. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Warren, how much does the terribleness of the Titans depress you?
Well, it's not the terribleness. It's just that you want to see them have more success. You know, This is an organization that I played for 10 years. It's a proud organization. I love their owner. She's doing a lot of good things as far as building a new stadium, new facilities, all that. And she just wants to see her team be successful. I don't blame her. And she's trying to do whatever she can to make that happen, whether it's changing coaches, changing general managers. And now I think we might be looking for a quarterback. I'm not really sure where they're going with that. But they've got some decisions to make at that position. And I think once they get that position solidified, now you can move on and start winning football games and build around it.
There you go. That was Warren Moon on our show at the Super Bowl, Pro Football Hall of Famer. And just a story, Warren comes on our show every year at the Super Bowl. And Warren's handler, I don't know who it is, but they emailed me about somebody else. They asked me if I wanted to have Willie Shields, the old, I believe Will Shields was a guard for the Chiefs back in the day. I think he's a Hall of Famer. They were like, would you want to have Will Shields on the program? I'm like, no, but hey, aren't you the guys for Warren Moon? They said, yeah. I said, can we get Warren on? They're like, oh man, Warren's schedule, it's too booked. I don't know if he can do it. I was like, well, Warren's in the Titans Ring of Honor. I don't think he's in anybody else's Ring of Honor. And we're here. Apparently they went to Warren and said, hey, the Nashville show wants you on. And they're like, oh, I'm doing that. And so that's why Warren Moon comes on our show every year at the Super Bowl. I love Warren Moon. So I saw a tweet from Kaharski that's a story at paulkaharski.com. Quote, if Cam Ward wants to wear number 1 with the Titans, Warren Moon will consider it. And this morning I was brushing my teeth when I heard Chase say that on the Chase and Big Joe show. And I had to take the toothbrush out of my mouth and put it down for a second and say, how disrespectful. Now, apparently, Cam Ward hasn't said that he wants Warren Moon's number 1. In a recent TikTok interview, Ward said he wears number 1 right now, but we'll see when I'm in the league. It just depends on what team I go to, what number they got. So we're hoping to stay with 1. If not, I'll just switch my number, which, again, seems very amenable and seems very respectable. It's also exactly what should happen. Now, my guess is Paul texted Warren Moon and said, hey, would you consider changing number 1 if I'm retiring number 1 if he wants to wear it? And Warren Moon, probably knowing that Paul was going to write a story, but probably said, I'm thinking about it. But let me just say this. I know there are a lot of people out there that think that Warren Moon should embrace the young guy and tell him, son, here's my number. I know a lot of people think that. And maybe that's the case. But that's not how I feel about this. I mean, no disrespect to Cam Ward when I say this. He hasn't done anything in the NFL yet. As of right now, he's the flavor of the month. At the beginning of this process, all we were told was all the quarterbacks in this class stink, and none of them are good enough for the number 1 pick. And now here we are trying to talk about unretiring Warren Moon's number. Warren Moon is one of the 2 greatest quarterbacks to ever play for this franchise, the other being George Blanda. It would be disrespectful if Amy Adams Strunk picked up the phone and called Warren Moon and asked Warren Moon if he would unretire number 1. It would be disrespectful, in my opinion, if Cam Ward picked up the phone, called Warren Moon and said, hey, can I wear number 1? I don't care if Cam wants to buy him a Rolls Royce. Again, Warren Moon earned number 1 being retired. It's the honor that nobody else will wear the jersey because of how great you played for our team. That's why we retired it in the first place. And this is why it's a problem when Colorado decides to retire Shador Sanders' number for beating 1 ranked opponent and being 1 game over 500 and not doing really anything remarkable that cheapens the idea of retiring numbers. I mean, let's just use the Yankees as an example. Would you ask Jeter to unretire his number? He's number 2. Would you ask Ruth to unretire 3, or Gehrig to unretire 4, or DiMaggio to unretire 5, or Mantle to unretire 6, or Yogi to unretire 8. No. I don't care if Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts were put into one person and they wanted to wear the number 3. You're not wearing it for the Yankees because it would be disrespectful to Babe Ruth. Alex Rodriguez was the best player in baseball when he got traded to the Yankees. He wore number 3 in Texas. He had won an MVP, multiple MVPs at this point. He wore number 13 in New York. Cam Ward wore number 7 at one point in his career. I think it might have been at Incarnate Word. He wore number 7. Number 7 belonged to Malik Willis. We all know Malik Willis is no longer here, nor is he going to get his number retired. Cam Ward can wear number 7. And I mean this with zero disrespect to Cam Ward. But I actually mean this with all due respect to Warren Moon. Because what Warren Moon did in the NFL, he was a superstar. And he did it the hard way, too. We all know the story of going to the CFL. But Warren Moon absolutely belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He is a gold jacket guy. And he earned the right to have his number retired. And it won't mean as much here because he didn't do it here. Because the Oilers played in Houston. But it's the Titans/Oilers. That's why the Texans don't get to wear the throwback uniforms. Because that's not their franchise. In fact, I remember when Deshaun Watson walked into a game wearing a Warren Moon Oilers jersey, and I thought, how disrespectful. Because again, Warren Moon plays for the Oilers. Warren Moon is a Titan. That's why, again, when Warren Moon goes to the Super Bowl and he's got all those interviews booked and everybody that's at Radio Row wants to get Warren Moon on there. So he's a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He goes to his handlers and says, I'm doing the Nashville show. Why? Because he's an all-time great for this franchise. What's the point of retiring a number if, again, some guy who's never played a snap in the NFL can just wear your number? And I hate the idea. I even hate the idea of PK asking Warren Moon the question. And there are people that are wondering it. TD's come on the show and said maybe Warren Moon should consider it. And I'm sure people on social media have said it. But at the same time, when it comes to the decision of picking up the phone to ask the great Warren Moon, hey, what do you think about this rookie who's never played a snap in the NFL wearing your jersey? I find that to be disrespectful. I find the idea of Amy asking Warren to unretire the number to be disrespectful. I find the idea of Cam asking Warren, and again, it doesn't sound like Cam's going to ask him, but if Cam Ward did ask him, I would find it to be incredibly disrespectful because I have respect for what Warren Moon did as a player. So I think it's ridiculous that they even asked. And I don't think Warren Moon should be put in a position to where he has to say, no, I earned the right for my jersey to be retired. I earned that gold jacket. And the same organization that just shipped me out of town because the cheap owner didn't win the Super Bowl in 1993 is now taking my jersey away from me or putting me in the position to where I have to say yes or no. No. Number 1 belongs to Warren Moon. Cam Ward can wear number 2. Cam Ward can wear number 3. Cam Ward can wear number 4. He can wear number 5. He can wear number 6. He can wear number 7. He can wear number 8, though I feel like that number might be cursed. He cannot wear number 1, and he cannot wear number 9. And any of the other numbers that are retired too. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. Again, I think the Titans are going to, what they're going to do is they're going to give Cam Ward the jersey tomorrow. It'll be number 1, like it always is for a first round pick when they present it to him on the stage. When he does the press conference on Friday, my guess, Cam Ward will have a jersey that says number 7. They are not going to give away Warren Moon's number. And if they give away that number, I'll go insane. Because I just think it's absurd. Again, he earned it. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on our program. If you want to weigh in, Stillman and Company, we continue. 1025-1063 The Game.
I believe that Shador Sanders, people don't want the thought of having to deal with him because that's dealing with his dad. In other words, your dad's going to be in your ear. Your dad's going to talk to you. Your dad is one of the greatest athletes who have ever lived and is obviously highly accomplished and knows football inside and out. So as a result, him listening to him, he's going to ask questions. He's not going to just take instructions, just because you say so. He's going to question. He's going to challenge your football intellect. And obviously, they'll know where that comes from, because if that was my dad, all right, and I had that kind of background and I had that kind of pedigree to lean on, that makes it more challenging for me to get somebody to march lockstep with what I want them to do if I'm not him. I think that's what this is about. They just can't admit it.
Stephen A. Smith in his latest defense of Shador Sanders, and this stems from a Tom Pelissero report at NFL Network, in which I believe this is one veteran coach. An NFL assistant coach said, quote, Shador Sanders was the worst formal interview I've ever been in my life. He's so entitled. He takes unnecessary sacks. He never plays on time. He has horrible body language. He blames teammates. But the biggest thing is he's not that good. And of course, Louis Riddick's on TV bitching about what are they going to get on him for this today? Then they're going to get on for that tomorrow. And Stephen A., this is because he asks questions. Maybe. Or maybe it's because Shador Sanders acted entitled in the meetings. I saw an Albert Breer report earlier this week that said that Shador has changed his tenor and his tone inside these meetings, that at the beginning of the process, he was kind of trying to steer things his way because he thought he was going to be picked number 1, 2, or 3. And so it was like, well, we don't want to go to that team. We want to go to this team. And now it's yes, sir, yes, ma'am, because he knows he's falling in the draft. This process maybe has humbled him a little bit. Here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to assume anything when it comes to this Shador Sanders story or not. Because number one, I'm not even sure if I buy that this story is true. I'm sure the assistant coach said that to Tom Pelissero. I'm not doubting that. But what I am wondering is, did the assistant coach say it to Tom Pelissero because he hopes Shador Sanders falls in the draft and they can get him at pick number 33 or number 34, or they can trade with the Titans for 35 to get Shador Sanders? So I don't know if I buy it or not. Because on one hand, it could be true. Shador Sanders does come off as a diva. Comes off as spoiled and entitled. And again, they retired his jersey, which was ridiculous. And then Dion goes up there all week. Last week, the story was Dion defending the decision to retire Shador and Travis's number when nobody has a problem with Colorado retiring Travis's number. And then I got to say, I'm kind of getting tired of the same people lecturing me about Shador Sanders every time there's a negative story out there. Stephen A., Josina Anderson, Louis Riddick. It's like they are personally attacked every single time somebody says anything negative about Shador Sanders. This is the draft. It's all gossip and drama and negativity. Surely it's not a race thing, because nobody's saying that about Jalen Milroe and nobody's saying that about Cam Ward. It's a Shador thing. And it's also not crazy to sit there and say, if we take this guy, he's played for daddy his whole life, and daddy can be obnoxious, and daddy can cause problems. So what's it going to look like if we draft him and he's not playing for daddy anymore and things don't go well? Because in the NFL, all the great quarterbacks have to go through adversity. How is daddy going to react? And I already know how Louis Riddick and Stephen A. are going to react if things don't go well. They're going to call for me to be fired. So again, I have no idea if this is even true or not. This absolutely could be a coach trying to tank Shador. But at the same time, This just idea that, oh no, there's some special theory to this, and that maybe Shador is a diva. Like maybe Shador was entitled in the meeting. Maybe Shador does hold on to the ball too long. But don't tell that to Stephen A. or Louis Riddick, or else they'll go crazy. And I just think it's ridiculous. So everybody in the text line, 99%, agree with the idea that Warren Moon deserves number one. Here's what I thought was funny was one texter in there said, doesn't retired mean something? That's what I thought. Another texter said, if Steve McNair's family said number 9 could be used for somebody else, us Titan fans would lose our you-know-what. Right. And Warren Moon, no disrespect to McNair, Warren Moon was a better quarterback than Steve McNair. Warren Moon, again, has a gold jacket. Even though Warren Moon didn't do that here in Nashville, that doesn't mean he didn't do it. And he didn't do it for the franchise, because he did. People are like, well, what if he wants to give him his number? Again, he shouldn't even be put in that spot. If he wants to volunteer it, that's on him. But if I was Cam, I wouldn't even take it. I would show respect where respect is due, and Warren Moon has earned the respect. One texter says, preaching the truth today. Another texter says, you sound like a pure hater. Can't win them all. 615-737-1025. We are loaded the rest of the show. Jason Fitz joins us next at Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio. We'll get his thoughts now that we know it's going to be Cam Ward. What's going to happen tomorrow night? Who's going to be there at 35? We'll do it all next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 here on our program today. Tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Sounds take on Durham at First Horizon Park. Pregame begins at 6:20. The first pitch is at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. And we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Tomorrow we'll be at Twin Peaks in Madison for the draft show starting at 6 o'clock. And, of course, we are loaded up until then. Jared versus Joe today. Caroline will join us. We'll get her reaction to where the Titans sit. But Jason Fitz joins us now on the program, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio. So, Fitz, we know the pick is in at number 1 overall, and we know it's going to be Cam Ward. Are the Titans making a mistake?
No, so I've come around on this a little bit because you and I have talked so much about the fact that I don't think he's generational. I don't think he's transcendent. There's all these things that we think of with the number 1 overall pick, but I am constantly thinking right now about the point that Orlovsky made last week that I think it's a pretty valid one, that the financial ramifications of being wrong aren't really that damning at the quarterback position. So if you're picking high compared to signing a free agent that turns out to be a bust. So I really have been more and more thinking about this. And like, if you're the Titans, you got the number 1 overall pick, you need somebody that you can really submit to, that you're going to build around for the rest of time, right? That you need to have somebody there. Like, I don't think this is a great option, Jared, but I also don't think there's a lot of other choice. It just feels like this is the right risk to take. I mean, what are you going to do? Draft Travis Hunter and have Will Levis try and throw him the football? Like, that doesn't feel like it makes sense. So I think given where they are right now and given where the franchise is, why not take the swing, hope that we're all wrong and Cam Ward becomes this generational icon?
So to that point, do you value more the money? Because again, to sign a Sam Darnold this year, it would have cost you probably around $80 million. So do you care more about the money, or do you care more about the value of the pick? Because I think the number 1 pick and trading out of the pick and getting more picks and everything else could be more valuable to building your football team than the actual cash itself.
Look, most years I would be in such lockstep with you. This is just such a weird draft. Like, I mean, would somebody be willing to trade up to number 1 overall for Travis Hunter? Maybe you could get more leverage out of it that way. Yeah. But like most years, I think right now we're sitting on somebody that we're all saying, this guy, man, this is going to be everything. And, I think Travis Hunter has a chance because he's done something so iconic, so special that we've never seen before. It's so historic, but man, is that suddenly going to take a team from 3 wins? Is Travis Hunter going to suddenly take Cleveland from being the 2nd worst team in the NFL to being one of the best? I don't think so. And Abdul Carter is as you know, I've told you a million times, I love the prospect of Abdul Carter, but I do think that there's a little bit of a yab up for some people on the foot issue that I don't think is going to be a big deal. But like, I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, the Titans are missing out on this guy that is going to be everything to the organization in such a way that it makes it not worth taking a stab. I'm with you. If we could redo the whole offseason, by the way, I would have signed Sam Darnold if I was the Titans. I would have skipped this year's quarterback class. I would have done that. But the closer we get to it, the more I think, man, why the hell not? If you're Tennessee, why not just roll the dice and hope that you can get the most out of this kid?
Fitz, when it comes to the Titans, do you think if they just stick Cam Ward out there with the team they have now that they will ruin him?
Yes. And this is where Titans fans get mad at me and tell me I'm a hater all the time. But like I've said on Inside Coverage on Yahoo a few times that the reason I don't love Cam Ward number 1 overall is because I don't trust the Titans not to ruin him. Like if he was going somewhere where he could learn for a bit and they could work into some of these things, they could work on some of the weirdly ill-timed spots where he's super aggressive with his arm for no good reason. If they could work through some of just the process of reading defenses, I think Cam Ward would have a much better shot at becoming one of those guys if he was given the opportunity to really flower and grow. But like right now, I mean, what's more likely? And I'm not throwing Titan here. It's just like, look at the facts over the last 5 years. What's more likely? That the Titans are going to slowly bring Cam Ward on, to shut off all the noise, do exactly what they want to do in a long-term development plan to keep the right coaching staff, GM, front office, and plan around him for the next 3 years while he flowers and grows into something great? Or is it more likely that they throw him out there, he doesn't have a lot around him, he loses a bunch of games year 1, Callahan gets fired, brings in new people, the new people may or may not be any better, but what do you know, by year 4 he's learning his 3rd offense. Like I think the Titans as an organization are more likely to fail Cam Ward, and he's not such a great prospect that he can live through being failed.
Yeah. Fitz, what do you make of Shador Sanders?
By the way, I don't mean to be harsh, by the way, but still, when I feel Like, I want everybody to watch our Yahoo live stream on Thursday and Friday, and Titans fans are going to be like, this guy's a bum. He hates I feel harsh. I feel harsh the way I'm saying it.
You got to tell it like it is, Fitz. That's why the show's so popular. So in regard to Shador, what do you make of the quote-unquote falling of Shador Sanders? Do you think that there's some truth behind this? Do you think that he'll still end up going number 9, number 6, number whatever? Or do you think that this might be real and he may fall out of the first round?
I don't think he's fallen out of the first round. And frankly, I don't think any noise happening in the last 24 hours is real at all. Like, somebody didn't suddenly realize that like, if it's true that people are freaking out that nobody came to his birthday party, like all these stupid things that you hear, like, if any of that were true, they found that out months ago. Like, they've hired a private investigators to look into this kid. Like, they're not discovering today that there's some issue. So I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of people leaking information just to try and get him to move down and down and down. Because let's acknowledge that 4 of the top 8 picks in the second round could all use a quarterback. Like, it's a home run for some of those teams if Shador and Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe all make it into the second round. And like, look, we can't change this, but the reality of it is, a kid taken in the second round is actually going to, like, if Cleveland takes Shador in the second round versus if they had taken him second overall, it changes the entire build of expectations. It changes the way we view his success or failure.
No, it doesn't.
I think it actually. I think it does. If Shador,
we lived through this with Will Levis.
3 years to get it.
Fitz, we lived through. They're done with Will Levis. We lived it with you. Treat him like a first round pick, especially a kid that's as hyped as Shador
Will
Sanders.
Levis is Will Levis. I'm sorry, Will Levis stinks. If you're just pretty good, if you're just okay, you think that the world would have been as patient with the development of Derek Carr if he'd have been a first round pick instead of a second? I don't. I think when you're taken in the second round, if it takes you a couple of years to get your feet under you, but you show signs, people are positive. Will Levis never showed signs. Like, I'm sorry, but Will was laughable trash to most of us from the time he got on the field. Like, yes, if Shador comes out and he's just god awful, he's not going to get any grace. But I definitely think that he'll get more patience from Cleveland if it takes 2 years instead of 2 weeks.
Fitz, is Mike Vrabel going to take the short arm tackle the same way he took the short arm tackle and stuck him at guard with Skoronski a couple years ago? Is he going to take the short arm tackle at number 4, and is he going to stick him at guard? Because it was an absolute no for Peter Skoronski to play left tackle. We had to watch Andre effing Dillard out there at left tackle. Is he going to do the same thing again and take the same short arm left tackle?
Yes, 100%. You are 1,000% right about that. You know that better than anybody. That's what he's going to do, and Patriots fans are going to have an awakening. I believe that, yes.
Okay. Is he going to play him at guard or is he going to play him at tackle? Because, again, with Skoronski, I was the bad guy for constantly busting Vrabel's chops about why is he not playing left tackle.
No, I think you're right. Like, they're going to start him at tackle for a second, and then he's going to be moved into guard quietly, and then he just stays at guard where – then you don't have to answer the questions. I think they'll tell us on draft night that he's a tackle, and then by early in the season, Vrabel's got him over at guard. Because you're right, like, he doesn't like guys with tiny arms. It's funny to say about mammoth human beings.
They don't draft him. I don't get it. Don't draft him. If you're gonna have to play him at guard, don't take him with the 4th pick. The Titans at 35. We hear a lot about Luther Burden not making it into the first round or making it out of the first round. We hear a lot about Emeka Ibuka being perhaps available in the second round. Donovan Azaraku, edge rushers. What are your expectations? Who are the guys? There's always a couple of guys every year that are mocked in the first round in every draft, and they're there on day 2. Who could that be this year, and what do you think about the potential for the Titans in day 2?
I think Emeka is a really good call there because I honestly, I'm in the minority here. I think that the wide receiver market's going to be slow tomorrow night. I just don't think these guys are going to get the hype. And once it takes a long time for Tedero and McMillan to come off the board, once that takes a little longer than people expect, I think we've got 2 going in the first round, and then we'll see from there.
2?
So, but maybe I might get the 3rd at the end of the bottom of the first round. But yeah, I think. I feel like they're going to be there. And frankly, if the quarterbacks go the way I think they're going to go, people are going to be spending those late 20s picks trying to trade back in. Like, I still think 4 quarterbacks go tomorrow night. And that's because 2 are going to go in the mid to late 20s, which means the draft up, the trade up into the bottom of the first round is really going to be occupied for quarterbacks, not wide receivers.
Okay, so if you think two go, that means you think Matthew Golden and Teteroa McMillan go in the first round. And that means that you think Emeka Ibuka and Luther Burden are going to be available in round 2.
Yeah, top of round 2, both of them. Yeah.
Okay, so who should the Titans
I'm
take?
comfortable with that. Emeka. I think the world sleeps on Emeka, frankly. I think, we get bored sometimes with greatness and we normalize what we see out of Ohio State, but like there's nothing that could get to. I know it's not as flashy as some of the other guys, but I'm in love with. I have a severe wide receiver man crush on Emeka Ibuka.
Who is the one guy that you see mocked in the first round you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole?
I mean, other than Shador, is Shador allowed to be the allowable answer on that?
No.
I just okay. So other than the quarterbacks, and I don't know. I don't think there's a lot out there that I really dislike mocked in the first round. These offensive linemen are interesting to me only because I can't find fat guys that agree on them. Like you can ask 5 fat guys and you'll get 5 completely different answers. So I'm not going to pretend to even be able to tell you which ones of them. Like I think it's kind of crazy, to see Simpson, the Ohio State kid, with a patella tendon issue, like to think that he's going to go in the first round to me seems crazy. But I don't know. Like there's just not enough offensive linemen, so I think it's probably somewhere there. But man, I don't know. Like I said, I think the wide receiver is going to fall, and I don't think if I were drafting, I wouldn't take any of the quarterbacks. I simply would skip this year at the quarterback position.
Okay, last one for you. Who is the one guy that is not always considered in round 1 who you really, really like and think will be a star in the league?
I mean, honestly, I'll go with the running backs there. Like I think Judkins has a really good chance to be a star in this league. I think Travion Henderson too. Both of the Ohio State backs have a really good opportunity, but I think where your depth for a genuine star comes at the running back position in the second round. Like the first 15, 20 picks of the second round, I do think between the wide receivers and the running backs and whatever quarterbacks are left, it's going to be really interesting there. But I would go with the running back position for the opportunity to give you another star.
It's funny. The guy I love is also at Ohio State, Donovan Jackson, the guard tackle who excelled at both.
Oh, yeah,
That's the guy I think he goes in the first round tomorrow, but I freaking love him. I love him. Again, he was good at guard and then he got pushed out to tackle and he was good at tackle and he played against elite competition, but that's just me. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. You guys have a live stream tomorrow, Fitz?
Yeah, we got live stream tomorrow and Friday. You can check it out in the Yahoo Sports app and then everywhere on social media, on the Yahoo site. It's all there. And there's a whole group of us. Like we're going to cover from fantasy football and all the way into obviously deep stuff. Nate Tice is one of our experts. He's one of the best there is. So yeah, it's going to be fun. Hosting, no commercials. Check it out on your second screen option while everyone's sitting there hanging out with you in person.
When do you pee?
I don't. Like I'm proud of the fact that for a person with the bladder of a child, I managed to make it through all of these. Both of days, I will tinkle right before, and then I'll hold it the entire show. There's no commercials, and for me sitting in the host seat, like I don't feel good walking away. So yeah, no, there's no tinkle breaks.
Are you in Green Bay?
No, we'll be in LA. We're doing it from our studios in LA.
I was gonna say I think the draft in Green Bay, like maybe I'm wrong, maybe it'll be great. I think it kind of sucks. Because Green Bay, there's no downtown there. It's just the stadium.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's not going to be nearly the vibe. Like they should just permanently put the draft in Nashville.
I'll take it. Jason Fitz, as always. Fitz, great stuff. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yep. 615-737-1025. He thinks both Burden and Ibuka will be there in round 2. I would be shocked. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. We continue on. This week's best deal is from Fog Street Lawn Club, Nashville's premier soccer pub and rooftop. Fog Street Lawn Club offers scrumptious bites, British lawn bowling, and premier soccer pub vibes. Get half off a $30 gift card now at theGameNational.com/deals and dive into the ultimate rooftop experience.
How many conversations have you had about the 35th pick in particular, and maybe your list of guys that you would say if he's here, it's going to be a hard decision to move off of this pick?
Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of the strategy. We've had those conversations here, especially over the last week. Chad, Brian, myself, Reggie, Dave, we've gone through the whole thing. And that's part of it. You have to be prepared at a certain point. If these players are on the board, if there's a few players that are there, do we not move and take that player? Or are there a few players there that we can move back and maybe pick up a pick? So those conversations have been ongoing here the last week or so.
There you go. That was Mike Borgonzi talking about the 35th pick in the draft, saying, yeah, me and Chad and Brian and Dave and Reggie and Johnny and Stevie and Scotty and Susie, and we've all sat down and we've all discussed it, because not one person for the Titans can ever make a decision. It's got to be a committee. So that's what they've been doing. But with that, it's time for another mock draft simulation. Okay, Titans are on the clock with the first overall pick. They select Cam Ward, number 1 overall. Let's skip to 35. By the way, in this Pro Football Focus mock draft simulation, Luther Burden III goes off the board at 15 to the Falcons. Kind of shocking. All right, Titans on the clock at 35. Best player available, according to the Pro Football Focus board, James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher out of Tennessee, Benjamin Morrison, the corner out of Notre Dame, Kevin Winston, the safety out of Penn State, Omar Norman Lott, the defensive tackle out of Tennessee, and Elic Aomanor, the wide receiver out of Stanford. Others available with the pick: Landon Jackson out of Arkansas is available, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State is available, and one of my personal favorites, Donovan Jackson, the guard/tackle out of Ohio State, is available at 35. If I have to make the pick, it would be James Pierce or Donovan Jackson, and it probably would have been James Pierce. But I have 3 trade calls: San Francisco at 43, Dallas at 44, and the Giants at 65. The Giants only have 65 and 99. I am not interested in dropping that far. They're out. San Francisco at 43, Dallas at 44. San Francisco has 75 and 100 in the third round, but to move down from 35, I'd want both of those picks. So I'd want to go to 43, and I'd want to pick up 75, and I'd want to pick up 100. They say no. Dallas has 46 and 76. Is it worth the extra player to give up James Pierce or Donovan Jackson? In this instance, I'll say yes. The extra player to get the extra third rounder is probably worth one of those guys, but this may be something I regret. So I make the offer to Dallas. 35 and 167 in the 6th round to Dallas for 44 and 76. Declined. Dallas, I try again. Okay, how about instead of the 6th round, let's go with the 5th round. 35 and 141 in the 5th for 44 and 76. Dallas accepts. Titans on the clock now at 44. James Pierce is gone. No trade offers for the pick. Benjamin Morrison, Kevin Winston, Omar Norman Lott, Elic Aomanor, and Donovan Jackson still there. James Pierce is gone. This is easy for me. The one guy I love, Donovan Jackson. I just told Fitz, I said, this is the guy I love. I think he goes in the first round. I'm going to take him 44. I know. Dan Moore's at left tackle, Skaronski's at left guard, Cushenberry's at center, Zeitler's at right guard, and Latham's at right tackle. You have offensive linemen. I don't care. You can never have enough good quality offensive linemen. Donovan Jackson can sit the bench, learn from Bill Callahan, play guard, play tackle. I'm sure one of these guys will get hurt. I'm sure one of these guys will suck. I'm taking Donovan Jackson. So now I'm on the clock at 76. Best players available: Andrew Makuba, a safety out of Texas. Tate Ratledge, a guard out of Georgia. Definitely don't need a lineman. Xavier Restrepo out of Miami. I can hear you now. Jared, he played with Cam Ward. Yeah, he runs a 4.7. He's out. Shamar Turner, A&M, a defensive lineman. Running back Damian Martinez, and edge rusher Kyle Kennard. The Giants call. They have 99 and 105 in the 4th So let me ask you this. I'm going to take Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina, but would Kyle Kennard be worth 99 and 105? So now I'm picking at 1, 44, 99, 103, and 105. Would it be worth the extra players? Probably not. I should probably just take Kyle Kennard. Instead, I'll make the trade, though. 76 for 99, 105. And I asked for a fourth rounder next year, and they said yes. Titans on the clock at 99. Kind of slim pickings here. Kennard's gone. Most of this. I'll go Austin Gelati, the edge rusher out of Louisville. He's a one-trick pony. He's a pass rush specialist, but it's the end of the third round, so I go with him. And so now we go to bed on Friday night. Cam Ward, Donovan Jackson, Austin Gelati, and the 105th pick plus a fourth rounder next year. Most of these, I walk away from them and I say, I like the picks I made here. This one, not so much. I need a better edge rusher than Gelati. Probably should have taken Kennard. Probably should have just taken James Pierce at 35. Again, would you rather have Donovan Jackson, Gelati, and a extra fourth rounder this year and next year? Or would you rather just have James Pierce? Or would you rather have Jackson and Kennard? And I think I'd rather have Jackson and Kennard, and I think I absolutely would probably rather have James Pierce. So that one, not all that proud about as far as the mock draft simulation is concerned. But you do see how you drop when you move down and you go consistently in there. Somebody says, who in the hell are we throwing the ball to there? Let me say this. What happened to you don't draft for need? I thought the Titans cared about that too. 615-737-1025. Caroline Fenton joins us next. Her thoughts on where the Titans sit. And again, she knows these college players better than we do. Since she is a college football guru for Yahoo Sports, she will join us next. Stoneman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tomorrow we'll be live out at Twin Peaks in Madison. Again, I want everybody out there, come on out and say hey, as we will celebrate the NFL's annual player selection meeting. That is, in fact, the actual real name of the draft. Joined now by Caroline Fenton, Yahoo Sports, joining us on the program. So Caroline, yesterday the Titans said they know who they're going to take. They're not going to trade the pick. They're not interested in trading the pick. We know it's going to be Cam Ward, number 1 overall. Your reaction?
Yeah, I feel the same way about the Titans being definitively picking Cam Ward as I do about, like that one friend that dates that total D-bag, but they get engaged. And it's like, well, they're going to get married, but I don't like it. Like, it's gonna
Didn't you just get engaged?
But I don't like it. Yeah, I'm not talking about me. My fiance's awesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about other people. Could never be me. That's kind of how I feel about it. And I keep asking myself, why do I feel this way about the Titans taking Cam Ward? Is Cam Ward going to be the savior of an organization? It takes a whole lot for a player to be the savior of an organization. Joe Burrow can do it. Not a lot of guys are Joe Burrow. Is Cam Ward that guy? I don't think so. Cam Ward has this like Superman kind of mentality of like, I got it. I can do it. I can put the team on my shoulders. We've seen it several times. Watch the second half of the game against Cal. That was the ultimate Cam Ward. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. I got it. I can win this game myself. And he did. But also watch the Georgia Tech game. Because he tried to do it himself, and he couldn't. He got sacked on 4th down in a play in a time when he absolutely positively could not take a sack. So I worry about him trying to play Superman too much. Does that sound familiar? So I think, is that a Cam Ward issue, or is that a Titans issue? I have to keep asking myself that.
If Cam Ward was going to an organization that you knew was culturally and fundamentally smart, would you have reservations about them developing him if it wasn't the Titans?
I would have fewer reservations. I think I'll always have reservations. Like, the hit rate for quarterbacks in the NFL, I know, we all know, it's incredibly low. That's the reason why we have these conversations every single year, is because it's such an imperfect science. I would have fewer reservations about it because Cam Ward has certain intangible things, right? He has the size, he has the mentality. I think he has kind of the personality of being a franchise NFL quarterback. I mean, we all heard the video game when he's like, I think Tony Pollard's the best running back in the NFL. Like, really, Cam? Do ya? Like, all of his teammates love him. He has all of the traits of being a franchise quarterback in the NFL. But not every quarterback can just be that. Not every quarterback can be Joe Burrow elevating a really crappy franchise, or Jaden Daniels elevating a crappy Commanders team. And I understand that I just named 2 LSU quarterbacks. Not being a homer, it is what it is.
Peyton Manning of the Colts.
I mean, as well, Peyton Manning to the Colts. Thank you. I don't think Cam Ward is that kind of guy. That's not a knock on him. Most guys aren't that kind of guy. He needs to have a positive and a healthy ecosystem around him. So if he had that, I would think, why not Cam Ward? Couldn't Cam Ward have a CJ Stroud or Jaden Daniels kind of rookie season? He doesn't have that ecosystem right now with the Titans.
So one thing that I feel like has gotten brushed to the side is, yes, we now have the Power 4 instead of the Power 5, but I really do feel like it's the major leagues and the minor leagues. The Big Ten and the SEC are the major leagues, and the ACC and the Pac-12 are the minor leagues. The Big 12. I call the Big 12 the ACC West, because I feel like it's just the ACC on the other side of the country. In both the case of Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, I feel like they did not play elite competition. Whereas Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, I mean, he beat Georgia. Cam Ward didn't beat Georgia this year. Cam Ward didn't really beat anybody this year. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, when weighing some of the gaudy statistics that Cam Ward had, or looking at some of the Pro Football Focus numbers, saying, okay, if he plays against NFL level competition, what will that look like? When it comes to the competition level of the ACC that Cam Ward played this past year, how do you view it?
It's definitely inferior. It's inferior to the level of competition that we saw in the SEC or in the Big Ten. And I think that's what we say about so many players. Receiver, how many times we talk about that with Big Ten receivers versus SEC receivers? I don't know about, Minnesota corners, but they're not the same as Florida corners. So I think it's fair to bring that up. It's Cam Ward barely beating Virginia Tech on a very iffy call in the final few seconds of the game. Is that a Cam Ward issue, or is that a level of talent at Miami kind of issue? I'm sure you've talked about it on your show. I'm sure everyone has talked about it. That's why Cam Ward needs time. Going from the level of talent, the level of defenses that he saw in the ACC versus what he's going to see in the NFL is night and day. It's different in the SEC versus NFL. And the SEC is much more NFL junior than it is in the ACC. So I think it's a very fair concern. It's not going to change. Like it can only get better. The only the option that you really have is let him get reps, let him see defenses, learn from it and get better from it. But you can't expect him to throw him into the deep end and be able to swim like Michael Phelps when he's not there yet.
Do you think they're going to do that? And would
Yes.
you do that? Would you sit Cam Ward on the bench if you were in charge?
I would sit Cam Ward on the bench. I would sit most quarterbacks on the bench, like in the whole nature versus nurture conversation, the whole sit versus start conversation. I am very much so on the side of sit. I don't, what would that hurt? Yes, you wouldn't be very good. And yes, fans wouldn't be very interested in your first overall pick sitting on the bench and having, Joe Schmo be your starting quarterback. But if that's what it takes for him to learn your offense, that's another thing that I don't think we talk about. Quick, little tangent here. We don't talk enough about how Cam Ward learned and played in and kind of became an expert at 3 different offenses in college. And he played at Incarnate Word, he played at Washington State, and he played at Miami. Those are 3 completely different offenses. So that's, a feather in his cap that I think is fair. But he needs to be able to sit and to learn. And he doesn't know what he doesn't know. He doesn't know what he doesn't know about NFL defenses. Do you feel great about him being behind this offensive line? Definitely don't feel great about him with this receiving core. So I would 100,000% sit him. I would sit Shador Sanders. I probably would have sat a couple of these quarterbacks in the past year's draft. I would have sat Bo Nix. Obviously, Denver knows a whole lot more about him than I know about him, but I would be in the sit side versus start side. But this is the Titans. They're going to start him. And if I had to put my money on it, I think the Titans would ruin him.
So here's what bothers me about the whole Cam Ward thing. First of all, since Matt Ryan won the MVP in 2017, the league MVPs have been Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Josh Allen. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those quarterbacks started their first game as a rookie. Not one of them. Not even Josh Allen, who played as a rookie, but he didn't start the first game. Nathan Peterman did. I look at the Titans and I see one receiver. I don't know if the coach is any good. I don't know if the offensive line is really going to be that much better. I think the defense sucks. And I'm like, maybe I would just put Cam Ward on the bench so he can learn, but also so that I won't ruin him with just how awful the situation is right now. And then I can sit him behind Brandon Allen or somebody else. And then midway through the year or something, like, they don't have a tight end. Chig's not a tight end. And I'm like, how do you develop a young quarterback with no tight end, with no second receiver, with a head coach again that we don't know? How do you develop a quarterback in this situation?
That's part of the reason why I would sit him. I think it's valuable to be able to learn and to sit, but I think it's also valuable to not rush your young quarterback who, let's all agree, ideally he's the future of this franchise. They're opening up a stadium in a couple of years. They want him to be the face of this franchise. Do you want him to be behind that offensive line? Do you want him to be throwing to Calvin Ridley and Calvin Ridley only? I think that's a big part of why I would want him to sit on the bench, is because, and it goes back to the point I made earlier, this ecosystem is not healthy for a young quarterback. I don't know how good the coach is. Who knows? The jury is out on Brian Callahan at this point.
Do you think he's a good coach?
I do know. If I had to say yes or no definitively right now, I would probably say no. I think he's a nice guy. Jim Stunk. The team absolutely. Look, I will hold out hope that Brian Callahan is a good coach. I can't say definitively, yeah, he's a good coach based on what I saw this past season, but it's all about what you put around the quarterback. We've seen it so many times before. Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. Look at him now versus what he was in Cleveland. If Cleveland had a better team around him, more continuity offensively, and he had a little bit more time to sit and to learn, maybe Cleveland isn't picking second in the 2025 NFL draft. So I think so much of my concern about Cam Ward, sure, some of it comes from the competition that he played in college, and some of it comes from his, F it YOLO ball mentality. But so much of my concern about Cam Ward with the Titans has to do with the Titans.
All right, Caroline's with us. We'll hit your phone, 615-737-1025, plus the 35th pick in the draft. What should they do? Who will be there? We'll get into that with Caroline next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
I mean, you want to take the best player available. Everybody says that. Not everybody follows that. The times in my career where I've seen we've made mistakes, either earlier in my career to even some of my mentors, when you kind of reach on a player based off need. Like Mike just said, I mean, we got a lot of needs. So we're just going to trust the process. We're going to trust the board. We're going to let the board talk to us. The work has been done. We're prepared. Now the draft is unpredictable at times. And I know we're picking at the top. So maybe a little bit more of an understanding of who might be there, who might not be there. But at the same time, we're prepared for whatever comes at us. And we just got to take the best player.
Okay, that was Chad Brinker yesterday. Caroline, while lecturing us about best player available from Brinker and Borgonzi, they also all but said they're going to take Cam Ward. Is that best player available with the first overall pick?
No. I don't. You can't convince me that it is. I texted you this, I think yesterday. I listened to 3 different draft shows yesterday: Yahoo, ESPN, and I think The Ringer. All 3 of them, in the same exact breath, said the Titans are going to, and the Titans should draft Cam Ward. The Browns are going to draft Travis Hunter, who is the biggest superstar, the most boom potential, and the most potential to be a franchise-altering player in the 2025 NFL draft. Did no one maybe stop and think, well, maybe the player with the most boom potential and the player with the most potential to alter a franchise should maybe go first overall? Every single draft evaluation that I've seen, whether it's Brugler or Kuiper or insert draft guru here, has Cam Ward as like the 5th or 6th best player in the draft. So no, you cannot convince me that Cam Ward is the best player in this draft.
Okay, what do you think about 35? Titan fans are moist over the idea that Luther Burden could be there. I don't understand this Luther Burden thing, because I read that part of the reason why he may fall to the second round is off the field issues. Well, if he has off the field issues that drop him to the second round, that's not going to do you any favors. You know, there's talk about Emeka Ibuka being there. And then, of course, there's the idea without a 3rd round pick, because the Titans thought L'Jarius knees were okay. They don't have one. They may trade
He told
back.
me
Well,
they were, to be fair.
He told you they were totally fine. He also said you had nothing to worry about. And then he went and allegedly shot up a car dealership. So I ask you this question. What do you think about the 35th pick in the draft from the Titans?
First of all, you have to stop using the word moist. There is never a good enough excuse to use the word moist. 35 is interesting because the Titans can draft for need and best player available, because they have a need at basically every single position on the team. I think what I would do if I was in that position is look at the receivers and the edge rushers that are there. If an Emeka Ibuka or a Luther Burden is there at 35, you sprint the pick in. Like, you don't even think twice about it. They're not going to be there. I would be willing to put my house that I don't own on Emeka Ibuka and Luther Burden not being there. I don't understand where this off the field issue thing is coming with Luther Burden. There were some concerns or questions about his production this past year at Missouri. They're not going to be there. Then there's that gap between the Luther Burdens, the Emeka Ibukas, possibly even the Matthew Goldens, if you want to put him in that same group. There's a drop off to that second half of the receivers, like the Jalen Royals, the Jaden Neals, like, they're not 35th overall pick kind of receivers, because the Titans need a plug and play receiver that can help you and play right now. Luther Burden and Emeka Ibuka are those guys. These guys, the Jaden Higgins of the draft, they're not. So I think there is a higher likelihood of a plug and play kind of edge rusher being there at 35 than there is a receiver. I can get a receiver later in the draft that's not going to be a plug and play day one starter, but it's a guy that you can feel pretty good about. You would get a more impact player, in my opinion, based off of all the research that I've done and the way that the mock drafts have fallen, that you can find like a Landon Jackson or a Nick Scorton, a Michael Williams potentially falling into the second round. Who I wouldn't touch is Shamar Stewart. That is an absolute no-go for me. The Titans need a guy that gets after the quarterback. He does not get after the quarterback.
Okay, let's do a little lightning round here quickly. What do you make of all the Shador Sanders rumors?
That he's falling?
Yes.
I believe him. I saw what the NFL coach said about it possibly being one of the worst interviews, if not the worst interview he has ever done. I've talked to the kid. I believe it. There's a certain sense of Shador Sanders already believes that he's made it.
Didn't you have that feeling when you sat down with him at the Super Bowl? You felt like, okay, like you felt like he was kind of an a-hole.
I had that feeling afterwards. I didn't go into the conversation that I had thinking that he's going to be a big time a-hole, but I stepped away feeling like it when he signed the car with his money sign. There was a sense of, I've already made it. I don't want my franchise quarterback to believe that he's already made it on day one of the NFL.
Who goes first, him or Dart?
I think it'll be Sanders.
Really?
I wouldn't be shocked or floored if it was Jackson Dart. I would say the concerns off the field, maybe the personality concerns are higher for Shador, but I do think that there is a higher ceiling for Shador. And there is going to be a team that bets their jobs on the ceiling rather than playing it just a little bit safer with Jackson Dart, at least as far as the personality is concerned. But it's not like Jackson Dart is some sort of, like humble guy.
Tedero McMillan ran a 4.55. I don't see, it would not be shocked if he fell out of the first round. And every time I say that, somebody calls me stupid. Would you be shocked if Tedero McMillan falls out of the first round? And what do you make of him not running at the combine and running a reported 4.55 at his pro day, which means it was probably maybe a little worse?
I would be shocked if he fell out of the first round because
is he really that good?
This draft isn't good enough for Tedero McMillan to fall out of the first round. Like, I would be honestly shocked if he fell out of the top 15. I don't know why there is this perception that Tedero McMillan is at the very top and that Emeka Egbuka and these other guys are only below him. I don't understand where this idea that Tedero McMillan is that much better of a receiver has come from. He's not fast. He's quick. He's twitchy. He can move on a dime, but he's not going to be your stretch the field vertical kind of receiver. I would not take Tedero McMillan in the top 15, but there will be a team that does.
Okay. And then what do you make of the running back, Ashton Genty? Where does he go? And where would you
think
take
he
him?
Goes top 10. There is so much hype about him going to Jacksonville. I would have put my money on Jacksonville going on a defensive, like a game-changing, game-wrecking kind of defensive player, because the Jags defense was absolutely horrendous last season. But look at who their new head coach is. Liam Cohen. And Liam Cohen wants to run the football. I think Ashton Genty goes in the top 10, and I think he goes to the Jags. If he doesn't go to the Jags, I think that Sean Payton is picking up the phone and calling whoever he can to trade up to get Ashton Genty.
Okay. Caroline Fenton, as always, with us, Yahoo Sports. By the way, do you remember when we sat around, me, you, and Ian, and we were like, all right, Caleb Farley, and we read like the public medical data that was out there, which was nothing. It was what Drew Rosenhaus was saying, and we're like, all right, everybody in or everybody out? And we were like, out, out, out. And then they took him.
Yeah. That was a good pick.
That really started a lot of this. All right. Caroline stays with us. Jared versus Joe is next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on Draft Eve. That's right. Tomorrow, the chimes will sound, and the Tennessee Titans will select Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Caroline stays with us. Joseph Robinette Rexroad Jr. is with us, as he always is. Joseph, thank you today for defending the honor of the Sam Darnold take over Cam Ward. I know it's not the in vogue or popular opinion at this point in time, but I appreciate you, unlike some other media people around here, not retreating on it.
Man, now I kind of feel dirty. I wish you wouldn't have brought it up.
Okay, and with that, it's time for Jared versus Joe. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Sad that the draft is going to be over. I like draft hype. But first, okay, Jared, we will start with you. The Titans are going to take Cam Ward number 1 overall. Is that the right thing to do?
No, it is not the right thing to do. The right thing would have been to trade back. And I keep hearing the Titans say really good things, but I don't then see them practicing them. They kind of remind me of, and I'm overweight, so I can say this, the overweight person that on Monday, I am going to start a diet. And then on Tuesday, it's like, ooh, pizza in the break room. I'm here for it. That's the Titans, because the Titans get up there and lecture us about best player available, and then they're going to take Cam Ward, who on some boards is like 13th. Then on top of it, the Titans told us you have to be very disciplined in this process. But what's disciplined about drafting Cam Ward, over drafting the quarterback, sticking him out there with no tight end and saying, here you go. And they talked about wanting 12 picks in the top 100 of the next 3 drafts. How do you get that if you don't trade this pick for Cam Ward? So I got to say, I think this is a terrible decision. I do not think they have the infrastructure in place for Ward to succeed. I think the fans are going to demand that he play too soon. I would feel so much better if the Titans didn't play Cam Ward, to start the season. They're going to. And so unless Cam Ward is Peyton Manning or Joe Burrow, the two, I believe, team independent, great quarterbacks in my football watching lifetime, unless he's Manning, unless he's Burrow, which everybody says he's not, I do not see this succeeding. I think it's a mistake.
I don't think they're doing the right thing by drafting Cam Ward. I mean, at this point, because of what they've done and because of where they are in their quarterback room, obviously they've led to this decision, and it makes sense given what they've done, but I think they should have done different things. And I still, right now today, if I were them and, there's nothing coming in reasonable in terms of offers to move up to 1, then I would still draft Travis Hunter and know I've got the best football player in this draft, and also know that I'm in store for a painful season on the field. And there's going to be a lot of ugliness and criticism about the quarterback room as it stands, but I wouldn't have cast my entire lot with a guy who I just don't think is going to be what they hope he will be, going as the number 1 overall pick. So even now I would draft Travis Hunter. Obviously what they've done previously is where you could have, tried to get a veteran, and then you could have, maybe you don't get a lot because the people just aren't as motivated to come get Cam Ward, but then you still can, you have your quarterback in place for the short term, and at some point in the future, you can take another swing at someone who's a little bit more likely to make it.
I mean, isn't there an element here where the Titans tell everybody that they're going to go best player available? and Cam's not number one on anybody's board, but the Titans will draft him tomorrow night and say he's number one on their board, is there any element of this where we accept that Cam could be number one on their board, but that their board is just different than every single other person's board? Or do we find that to be intellectually dishonest and we assume that he's not the top player on their board?
I mean, he might be the top player on their board, but they might be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the only way it's believable to me is if, like, just the quarterback position gets, like, multiplied by 3 or something, or divided or whatever. Like, it changes the math because of the position itself. But no, it's hard to believe that. I'll be interested to hear if they actually explicitly say that tomorrow, or if they kind of talk around it.
Well, they have to be asked it in order for them to be able to answer it tomorrow, which I do wonder if they'll be asked where Cam is on the board after they lectured all of us about taking the best player available. The second one on this that I do wonder too, when it comes to Ward, is do you guys really believe that Mike Borgonzi in his first draft or Brinker in his first draft, do you think that they really see him as the franchise future and as, they're the top player on the board? Or do you think there's some shenanigans that are involved here?
I don't know what you're saying.
Like, is Amy trying to, I want the quarterback? Or, hey, we need to sell PSLs, so let's draft a quarterback to excite our fan base, because last year we successfully excited our fan base with Will Levis at quarterback and sold some tickets, and then it was a disaster, so now they hate us, so let's get them to like us again, so let's draft the quarterback? Or do you think it's as simple as, no, they just really, really love Cam Ward?
I mean, I doubt the shenanigans. I like that scenario. That's a very good Jared scenario that you come up with there. I don't know that it's either or there. I would say it's probably the reality is probably talk themselves into / love Cam Ward, really like him. Also talked amongst themselves about the reality of, like, the return and the relative to other years when you have the number 1 overall pick and what the return might be. I mean, I think it's probably those two things combined.
I think there's some sort of shenanigans involved in this.
Amy's in there. Okay.
I think there's some sort of shenanigans on this. And the only reason I say that is because it's the Titans. And over the last 5 years, shenanigans has ruled the day. So I think there's something that is, I don't think it's as simple as Cam's on the top of their board and they're going with the top of their board and they turned down a big daddy offer from the Giants. Although I don't know, like Schefter put in his report that the Titans turned down a package that included a 3rd round pick. Whoa, a 3rd round pick. So maybe the offer sucked. I don't know. But I don't think it's a simple. I don't think if these guys had a choice, maybe Callahan, because there's no other option. If these guys had a choice, I don't think they'd tie themselves to Cam Ward unless they had to.
Well, I mean, if that's true, Jared, if Amy is just coming in and saying, nope, sorry, I know that I've put you guys in charge and I'm supposedly now stepping back, but actually I'm sitting here saying you must do this. Well, there's a good reason to, to not take a GM job, even though, of course, that's where you get paid and you're still going to be able to cash out, even if it goes up in flames. But I mean, talk about just having no chance to do your job.
Okay. So the other theory I have on this is, as of right now, the Titans have a payroll of $227 million. So that's 227. And that currently ranks 29th in the NFL. The Vikings, by the way, lead the NFL at $320 million. So the Titans are spending basically $100 million less than the Vikings. Now, I don't want to get into Joe explaining to me how that's possible when the cap, it says it's like $250 million or whatever, and the Titans are at 227 and another team's at 320. But that, is just reality according to Spot Track. What if Amy, because of the stadium, Amy's like, I'm not paying. I'm not paying top dollar for this team. So she wouldn't allow them to sign Sam Darnold in free agency. So they feel the need to draft Cam Ward because they want to go cheap at quarterback.
Okay, say that one again.
Okay. So did you get it, Caroline?
I got you. Yes.
So
she doesn't want to spend money on the team. She's spending money on the stadium. So they're back into a corner. They have to draft a quarterback.
I don't want to spend money. And even if I sign Sam Darnold or sign Geno Smith, I'm looking at $40 million. So I don't want to pay the money there. And you draft the quarterback. So now the $30 million check I have to write to the number one pick, who I would have had to write to Travis Hunter. I would have had to write to Abdul Carter. I'm writing that $30 million check to the quarterback and not a $40 million check to a quarterback and then a $30 million check to Travis Hunter.
I mean, sure. Is this going to be a one question, Jared versus Joe, with the rest of it just like a Jared panel discussion with his various theories on Titans conspiracies? I mean, if so, I mean, it's, I guess it
wouldn't be the first time, Joe.
So,
what do you think? So do you think it's a crazy conspiracy or do you think that it's possible?
I mean, again, I'll give you that anything's possible, I guess, but I just like if you're Amy Adams Strunk and all that has gone on here, and you've taken all of the criticism, the rightful criticism you've taken, I find it a little bit of a stretch to think that she is now going to sabotage any chance of a competitive football team emerging over there at St. Thomas Sports Park, because that's what.
So then why is their payroll 29th?
Well, Jared, I mean that doesn't. You're talking about. I mean, someone has to be 29th, 30th, 31st, and 32nd. I mean, they have the worst roster in the NFL, right? So I mean, it kind of matches up. But what you're talking about is just things that are like overstepping to the extreme to not let the football people you pay a lot of money to do football things. And I just think you're letting your mind spin out of control a little bit when the reality is people can talk themselves into a quarterback at the top of the draft. It happens all the time. A team that is desperate in need, a team that's desperate for hope. So again, I don't know that these guys, I don't know exactly the entire process of these guys arriving at Cam Ward, but I think they've arrived at Cam Ward. And you're acting like it's like a science fiction novel that they could get there between bad offers, which I think is probably a reality, given the way people have judged this draft. And also, look, the fact that he is a tantalizing talent. I mean, he's not a perfect prospect, of course, but like he has some traits that can excite you. And so then you meet him, you talk through the bad stuff on film, you like him a lot. I mean, look, by all accounts, he does have he's got kind of a leadership, natural personality and things like that. I mean, I think it's a lot easier to believe that than Amy is here just absolutely gut punching everyone to make sure this is a bleep show forever and ever. Amen.
Caroline, what's next?
Well, I was just going to say, I think there is a higher likelihood that Amy Adams Strunk has shiny ball quarterback syndrome, that she wants to have the hype of a future quarterback more than she wants to, Joe put it correctly, sabotage her football team. Because if you're not willing to pay for a quarterback or pay for a team around it, you need to sell the team. I don't think that she is there yet. But next question, and I say yet, I'm going to give her the BOD here, which maybe she deserves it, maybe she doesn't. Second question. If you had to put your house on it today, if you had to say you had to bet the farm on it today, will Cam Ward be a successful quarterback for the Tennessee Titans? Yes or no? Joe, you go first.
Define successful.
You can define successful.
Okay. Well, a successful quarterback.
I think it's a fair question to ask. What is considered a success? Is it barely getting into the playoffs and getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs every year? Like, you can say that. I would
say successful. I mean, successful. The floor of successful is you make multiple playoffs, you win at least one playoff game, and you get to a second contract. I think that's the floor. Okay. I think anything less than that would be hard to call successful. I will say no. I have to guess no. I'm going to guess no. I'm trying to go with the math on this stuff in general, and the math tells you, again, it's about 20% that a first-round quarterback will hit that level of success. And then, some people would have a higher definition of success, but he's not the guy who's going to be in the 20% to me. He is the profile prospect that's absolutely in the 80 percentile.
So I'm going to say no, but I'm going to say no not because of the kid. I'm going to say no because they don't have a tight end. We don't know, like, does Skoronski stink? Does Latham stink? We don't know that yet. If one of those guys is an absolute bust big picture, then the line is probably not going to be very good, and that's going to be a problem. Right now, he's got one receiver who's 30 years old and is probably a number 2 receiver in the NFL. The head coach, jury's out on him, but he's on the hot seat right now and did not impress in year 1. The defense stinks. The best player's a crybaby. The second best player allegedly just shot up a car dealership and has a bad knee. And the general manager and president of football operations have no skins on the wall and no experience of having done any of this before. And the owner's kind of reactive and in a bad way. So I think that the system is set up for Cam Ward to fail. I think the reason why there's only 4 quarterbacks that have been taken number 1 overall who have made it to the Hall of Fame, Bradshaw, Aikman, Manning, and Elway, is because a lot of times the teams that pick first are horrendous organizations, and they ruin those young quarterbacks as much as anything else. With the Cowboys, they drafted Aikman. Jimmy Johnson bought the team. Or, excuse me, Jerry Jones bought the team. Jimmy Johnson became the coach and saved the Cowboys. If Jerry today was running the team, I don't think Troy Aikman ends up in the Hall of Fame because Jerry's not a good owner. If, in the instance of Elway, he was taken number 1 overall, but he got traded to Denver because he and his dad refused to play for a crappy organization in the Baltimore Colts. Bradshaw sat the bench forever in a totally different era of football, and Manning was just special. And I don't think Cam is any of those guys. And so I think the system is set up for him to fail. And so I think he will fail because of the surroundings.
I will quickly add that I agree that the state of this franchise makes it a lot easier to say he's going to fail.
This is like the Al Gore, George W. Bush debate with a lot of agreeing. We continue with more Jared versus Joe next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline?
Been noticing some discourse between the Stillman and Company program and the Robbie and Rex Road program about one certain someone, and it is not Mike Borgonzi. It is not Cam Ward. So, Jared, I will ask you, if you ran a football team, you were in charge of an NFL franchise, who do you trust more to run your football team? Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, or one Bill Polian?
I will go with Bill Polian. I will go with the guy that has drafted 3 quarterbacks who have made it to the Super Bowl. I will go with the guy that has been to 6 Super Bowls as a general manager and has a gold jacket in the Hall of Fame. In fact, people don't understand this because the Pro Football Hall of Fame is odd, but the only way, there's only one contributor that gets into the Hall of Fame every year. So one coach, one general manager, one owner, one TV person, one person. So Robert Kraft, who's got 6 Super Bowls, is still awaiting entrance into the Hall of Fame. Now, they put a bunch of them in 2020 for the centennial celebration. That's how Cower and Jimmy and Jerry and all them got in. But there's one guy that usually gets in per year. Polian got in 2015. So like the year that Belichick goes in, everybody else is not going in because Belichick's the one going in. Same with Andy Reid. Polian is in the Hall of Fame. And I thought about this as I listened to the Robbie and Rex Road program, ask for a ban on referencing what the wise Bill Polian has to say. And I thought to myself, again, so I'm supposed to listen to Brinker and Borgonzi?
Wait. Did you say the lies Bill Polian says?
Did I say that? I said wise.
I hope not.
Wise.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
With a W.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the wise Bill Polian, but instead I'm looking at Brinker, Borgonzi, and Callahan. And I'm thinking about how Callahan has 3 career wins to his total. Borgonzi has 0 career wins. And I don't even know how to judge Brinker's career, given the fact that Brinker was technically the president last year, but then Rand was the one who gets fired. And I don't know. But I know Polian won a hell of a lot of games more than those guys did. So the answer is Bill Polian. And I don't care that he's an old pop. He wouldn't be my first choice to run the team. But if it's Brinker who got up there and said, we've got 9 Super Bowls amongst us yesterday, or Polian who actually has a gold jacket, it is not close. Again, Polian's had the number 1 pick when Peyton Manning was there, and he got it right. He had the number 1 pick when, again, there was McNair and Kerry Collins, and he traded out and took Kerry Collins. Again, he got it right. I'm taking him.
So this is a good attempt, Caroline, but I think it's an easy answer for me that as well. It's Bill Polian. See, this is a good chance to explain the discussion, which obviously Jared misunderstood some of it too. Now, Bill Polian would be my choice, and that means Bill Polian would be plugged into the process. He would be up to date on current players. He would be talking to scouts every day. I absolutely trust him and his judgment more than those guys who have
Who do you think he talks to every day now? You think he just sits there, watches TV, and presses channel up?
No.
Channel up.
No, but he's still been out of the game. He's still been out of the game for 15 years, and that's my only point is, there is a lot, like when you get out of it, you are still kind of out of it, right? Like, especially after that amount of time. So we were making fun of you for constantly quoting him. And also I find his 40-time rule to be stupid. I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, there's so many examples both ways of the 40-time being completely meaningless. It's not meaningless. It means something. But to have some hard and fast 40-time rule, I think it's just a bad thing. Look, you could take.
You think James Lofton sucks?
No, Jared, but you can take the.
You think Andre Reed sucks? You think Marvin Harrison sucks? You think Reggie Wayne sucks? You think Bill Polian doesn't know what he's doing?
Again, you're totally butchering what I'm saying. So let me finish a sentence. As you know, every single evaluator in this league, every great evaluator, the best, take your top 10, take whoever you want, take him, take whoever. Go through their entire record. You will find mind-bogglingly stupid decisions, right?
Sure.
They all have them. So, I mean, that's just part of the deal. And so no one's perfect. The 40-time rule is dumb. He obviously picked great players. Like you said, he's in the Hall of Fame. I would definitely trust him with those guys. But that means he's in the game. That means he's doing the job. And my whole point with you was, you sit here and you shake your finger at everybody and say, how dare you, disparage Bill Polian and Rick Spielman. Meanwhile, there are people who are actually in football, who have actually spent their lives in football, have played the game in college, have played the game in the NFL, have scouted in the NFL, have worked their way up through front offices, and you sit there and say they don't know a damn thing about football. I mean, it's kind of hypocritical, don't you think?
Candy Crush ran. I'm not saying I know football. I'm saying Bill Polian knows football.
Jared, you have claimed to know more football than them. Don't lie.
I have never claimed to know I have never considered myself a football person. And I would never do that because I did a show every day with a football person. So I know the difference between what Rand Carthon knows playing Candy Crush and sleeping in the office and what the old man knew.
Right, but again, the bad job performance is not the same as don't know football, which is what you claim, and then you shake your finger at everybody about these other people who, I mean, look, if you've been out of the game for a long time, you're not going to be as sharp on things. Let's be real.
I will say this, and like Porth, I think shares the same opinion I have, and I think Chase shares it too. And I wonder if Ian shares it as well. I don't know if he shares it. Decisions John Robinson got significantly worse after Floyd got sick. And I wonder how much of that was old man picking up the phone saying, whoa, now. Like, I do wonder that. Because these guys, they don't ever leave the game. They're like Al Pacino in The Godfather 3. Just when you think you're out, they pull you back in. Those guys do not leave the game, even if they're not in it. Caroline, what's next?
Okay, Joe, you go first. You and I agreed on this a few weeks ago, but tomorrow it will finally come to fruition. If Shador Sanders falls as much as all of the insiders, the gurus are saying he is going to fall, if he falls out of the top 10, Giants pass on him, Saints pass on him, so on and so forth. Will Jared be right? Do we have to swallow our tongues and admit that Shador Sanders was always a TV prospect?
No, it's a stupid take. And again, I get a TV prospect. I mean, Jared made the point that because Stephen A. Smith is friends with Deion Sanders, he talked up Shador Sanders, and so I guess then everyone
Louis Riddick too,
and it was fake. Okay,
Shannon Sharp,
look, like
who's got his own problems right now.
Yeah, like I said,
Caroline and I may not be making it to the Club Shay Shay party next year.
I don't think I want to go to Club Shay Shay next year. Sounds like a scary place.
If you want to talk about media, issues with like draft coverage, people get inflated all the time. And the thing is, media want is it this guy or that guy? Go back to Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf. That's the perfect draft situation for the NFL, for NFL media. So again, Drake May, that was the thing, right? That was for forever. It was Caleb Williams or Drake May. And then eventually it kind of got to the point last year during the draft when people were talking about, God, is Drake May going to tumble a long way? He didn't, but that's the same. I mean, to me, it looks like the exact same thing as this, except some people just don't like Shador. To me, if anything, the Deion thing is more discussed as a hindrance to him than anything. Just because two people you cite are friends with Deion does not mean he was friends with Deion does not mean Shador was inflated as a prospect. I mean, he's a legitimate NFL prospect. He's not a TV prospect. He's a legitimate NFL prospect. He's going to be drafted. So I don't know what to tell you. It's a bad take.
Okay, again, so do you buy into the slide?
Over.
Do you buy into the slide?
The slide? Well, again, what I buy into is that we always have, like, people are inflated all the time. Again, Carson Beck at the beginning of last college football season, he might go number 1 overall. Well, what happened? I mean, we always have inflated views of people that turn out to be incorrect. So
yeah, but inflated view at the beginning of the season and then him not playing well and now he's no longer a prospect, that's different than Shador being considered the number 1 overall pick a couple of months ago, and now he might fall out of the first round, allegedly, supposedly, reportedly.
That is true, but again, that's still at the beginning of the cycle of these teams figuring everything out, right? I mean, everybody's just going on what people are telling them. So I think Shador did.
Do you believe it?
There's no question, okay, with some people, not with everybody, But with some people hated his guts in the interviews. You guys are catching that, right? Is that fake, Jared, or did that really happen? That's just fake BS because he was a TV prospect? Or are people who are telling these reporters, my God, I hated the kid, telling the truth? I think that's a real thing. So I do think I think the interview process helped Cam, helped solidify him. I think Shador fell and maybe even off some teams altogether with the interviews. And again, I think he's better than Cam Ward. So, hey, what do I know? But this idea of like the idea that Deion's buddies that's basically what Jared is saying. Deion's buddies created some fake narrative for a guy who isn't actually a prospect. It's ridiculous.
Well, first of all, they're all prospects technically. Like Jalen Milroe is a prospect, but nobody's sitting there saying, is Jalen Milroe going to go number 1 overall? Is Curtis Rourke going to go? He's going to get drafted. Is he going to go to? No. But we're doing this with Shador. Stephen A. Smith,
why did we do it with Drake May last year? Jared, tell me about Drake May. Because Drake May, during this process, the same stuff happened. It was like, oh, I don't know, Drake May is tumbling, man. Why?
But Drake May didn't tumble. He went third because he's a legitimate prospect.
I understand that, but we don't know what's going to happen in this draft, Jared. But that was
that's why the question was if he falls. If he falls. Okay, and it looks like he is going to fall out of the top 10 tomorrow. But if he was a bona fide, like if it was a legitimate him or Cam discussion, then he's going 2 to the Browns. He's not going 2. He's not going 3. They say he's not going 9. Today, I guess Tomlin had a press conference.
TV prospect, maybe you need to say he was a TV top 2 guy, but that's not what you said. You said he's a TV prospect.
He's a TV prospect. He's in the same. Tim Hasselbeck said it a month ago. That he said that, hey, best case scenario for him is Andy Dalton. He's closer to Tyler Shuck and Jalen Milroe than he is to Cam Ward. And everybody on TV said, they were talking, the questions were, should the Raiders mortgage the future to move up to get Shador Sanders? That was the talk. Now the Raiders will pass on him maybe once for sure, maybe twice. Again, when it comes
and you seem to not realize that this happens every year. That's the problem. Again, you don't pay attention. All you do is talk about the draft, but then you don't.
Nobody talks about Ashton Genty. Nobody talks about Will Campbell and should the Patriots at 4 take him with his short arms. Nobody, because those are real draft prospects, but they're not TV sexy. What's TV sexy is Shador, and Shador is going to go. Nobody's talking about Tyler Shuck. Shador is going to go probably after 25, and that's a massive fall. And and I agree with you, I think that what those scouts told NFL.com and SI and everything else, what was the end of the paragraph from the assistant coach that slammed Shador Sanders? Joe, do you remember what that was?
I don't, Jared, but I can't wait for you to tell me.
He said, and he's not even that good. That's the thing. He's not that good. He's short. He's got a weak arm that was elevated by the atmosphere in Colorado. He played crappy competition. He had the best wide receiver on his team. His dad's famous, and that he's whatever. He's whatever. He's a TV prospect, Joe. And for Peter Schrager to sit there and say, it's the media's fault. We should have never had him at the top of these drafts. Well, guess what? It plays on TV.
He played in front of one of the worst offensive lines in football the last 2 years for a team that not only couldn't run the ball,
I know the offensive line was bad because you know who told me it was bad? Shador Sanders.
Yeah. And they not only did they not or could they not run the ball, they didn't try to run the ball. And the guy threw for 4,700 yards as Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. His on-target pass rate is easily the best in this class, and I think would have been second last year. He is a better prospect than Cam Ward, but we'll see.
Caroline, who wins?
I hate the term TV prospect, and I think you're totally at 100% off there. Like, yes, TV and headlines and social media loves Shador Sanders, but he's not a first overall or first round prospect because he's a TV prospect. But Jared wins because to say that Shador Sanders is a better prospect than Cam Ward, I frankly do not understand.
Okay, we'll see.
He
I'm
took
happy
so
to
many
lose. I'm
dumb
happy to lose
sacks
on that.
last year,
I'm
Joe.
happy to lose on
He would
that.
just run around. He'd lose like 20 yards trying to evade a sack and then get sacked.
Right, and that's what happens when your right guard gives up immediate pressure, and then also your left tackle does the same thing. I'm not saying that he handled all those situations well. Sometimes you got to throw it away, but the guy did tremendous things under duress constantly. And again, he does not have the big arm that Cam Ward has. He has a much more accurate arm. I value that way over this. Oh, he can throw a side-armed laser down the field. Great. Jamarcus Russell could throw 80 yards on his knees. Who gives a crap? Shador Sanders is a better prospect, but I love losing on that. I'm loving it.
Shador Sanders is a TV prospect. Thank you two, as always. And Carolina was good to chat earlier as well. Stillman and Company. We continue along. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 and 1063 The Game.
I believe that Shador Sanders, people don't want the thought of having to deal with him because that's dealing with his dad. In other words, your dad's going to be in your ear. Your dad's going to talk to you. Your dad is one of the greatest athletes who have ever lived and is obviously highly accomplished and knows football inside and out. So as a result, him listening to him, he's going to ask questions. He's not going to just take instructions, just because you say so. He's going to question. He's going to challenge your football intellect. And obviously, they'll know where that comes from, because if that was my dad, all right, and I had that kind of background and I had that kind of pedigree to lean on, that makes it more challenging for me to get somebody to march lockstep with what I want them to do if I'm not him. I think that's what this is about. They just can't admit it.
That was Stephen A. Smith today, and I was laughing. Oh, my goodness gracious. And Joe Rexrode will never admit that Shador Sanders is, in fact, a TV prospect. And I was thinking about this as we were arguing there on Jared versus Joe. Tomorrow night, we're going to be live at Twin Peaks, and I expect to see everybody there. But we're going to be live at Twin Peaks tomorrow, and we know who the Titans are going to take. And so it's going to be me and Trevor and Chris and Derek. And I think, and again, I have no idea how the night's going to play out. But unlike last year where I had that massive meltdown when it came to J.C. Latham, because we know what the Titans are going to do, it's probably not going to be as, exhilarating and emotional as it was last year. We'll probably be, and I, again, trying to foreshadow what this will be like without knowing what happens throughout the course of the night, but we'll probably be talking a lot about, okay, guys that we're kind of targeting for the 35th pick for the Titans or things of that magnitude or whatever. That'll probably be what we end up doing. But the story of the night, even though it really doesn't have anything to do with the Titans anymore, is how far and if Shador Sanders falls. And it hit me because I don't have a perfect definition for TV prospect when talking about what makes Shador Sanders a TV prospect as compared to, say, Cam Ward, a real prospect. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm reminded of television that I'm not proud to admit I watched as a kid. The Jerry Springer Show, Montel Williams, Ricky Lake. There was another show that was on where I forget who the host was. They'd send the kids to boot camp and they'd come back and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mom." And if I was home during the summer, I'd watch those shows. Maybe that was Sally Jesse Raphael. Again, I'm not proud to admit that I watched some of that, but it was kind of like wrestling. You don't know if it's fake or not. It kind of is fake. It kind of seems contrived, but man, you got to watch. That's how I feel about Shador and Dion. I have to watch all of this drama, and I am rooting for Shador to fall. And I am rooting for me to say, if Shador Sanders gets passed over team after team after team after team, and I can't tell you why, other than this kind of feels like wrestling, and he and Dion kind of feel like heels. And every time one of these Stephen A's or Louis Riddicks or somebody like that get up there and criticize anybody who has any criticism for Shador Sanders, it makes me want him to fall more. Again, it's Louis Riddick and Stephen A on TV lecturing everybody about how can this one coach say that Shador was entitled in the meetings? I don't know. Maybe he was, Louis Riddick. You weren't there. I wasn't there either. But nope. Stephen A has to go on some rant about, you know what this is? This is coaches being worried about Dion and the fact that Shador, that cut we just played was basically Dion excusing Shador not taking coaching. He's got a certain level of intellect that he will ask questions and he will challenge you and he will. You don't think John Elway ever challenged Dan Reeves? When Dan Reeves passed away, John Elway put out a statement in which he said, even though we didn't see eye to eye all the time, I was a better player because of him. You don't think Peyton Manning challenged Tom Moore? Of course they did. But it's the show. And I'm telling you, the story tomorrow night across the country And I do wonder because, again, we're so Titan-centric in Nashville and everything else, and Shador's off the radar now because the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward, and so you have no use for Shador. But as somebody who tries to put this show together, I do feel like there's a certain element here of us that even though we don't have any skin in the game on Shador anymore, we're going to care because he's a TV prospect. He gets us to watch. He's like Sally Jesse Raphael. He's like wrestling. He's like one of these heels. And that's what makes him a TV prospect. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. We're giving something away next. 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, I hope to see everybody tomorrow live out at Twin Peaks. in Madison. There's two. There's Cool Springs and Madison. We'll be in Madison tomorrow night. I'll be there starting at 2. The draft show starts at 6 tomorrow. Jared, Chris, Derek, Trevor. I expect to see everybody there. And let's give something away. Be caller 5 right now. You'll win a pair of tickets to see Metallica at Nissan Stadium on Saturday, May 3rd. Special guests include Limp Bizkit and Ice 9 Kills. Everybody rest up because tomorrow it's the NFL Draft, the league's annual selection meeting. We will see you then at 2 o'clock. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.